out, and he would have to sleep to recuperate. He would then wake sometime later, remember where he is, and begin yelling again for help. Here he remained in the dark for the next 23 hours.
It's just not as effective. The feeling of being stuck in that cycle for dozens of hours is gone. It's quite difficult to take a story you got from an article and tell it again without using any of the words you liked.
Floyd has been exploring the caves of Kentucky since he was merely 6 years old.
Oh, I guess I can't mention Kentucky now. That makes it obvious. Better re-record.
Floyd started his caving career at the tender age of 6.
Some of the changes give away how uncreative he was, just how much he relied on Riley's work even with the most basic shit. He used his words about someone's hands being bruised and purple.
Parts were harder to navigate than before, especially now with their bruised and purple hands.
So in the new version, this had to be changed.
Parts were harder to navigate than before, doubly so with their bruised and rock-shredded hands.
Why would you not just write a new description of some hands in the first place? This is so lazy. What is wrong with this guy? And despite all these changes, the factual errors about the cave and the rock are still the same. It's like this version was made to annoy me. It's especially hard to make major changes when you already made the animations. It's almost impossible to remove Lucas's influence without doing so much work it's not even worth it. For example, the gopher section has been completely removed since it was directly copying an anecdote from the article. He's replaced it with a new segment, which is just C-tier reference humor.
He would go off on his own, disappearing into the caves for many hours at a time. Have you seen that movie, The Descent? It was a lot like that.
Holy crap, Lois, this is just like that movie. Some of Riley's article was too short and simple to meaningfully change, so those parts have just been taken out.
And all they could do was leave for now and reassess. Everybody was shaken by the experience. Burton fainted as he crawled towards the exit. Most of the other men had to be carried away, and all they could do was leave for now and rest.
Since it can't use any of the clever words it stole anymore, the whole thing's been dumbed down.
Now, Floyd was trapped in a supine position. So Floyd is trapped laying down like this.
Imagine sitting down to watch your favorite show and the streaming service has replaced it with a different cut where all the characters talk like idiots now.
You made me look bad, and that's not good.
I feel bad for the people who enjoyed the
Just
original.
watch Columbo.
People in the comments and on the Reddit page are asking why he changed it and why all their favorite lines are missing. They don't know why because he didn't tell them. Why is the new version of the video unlisted and not public? Well, it could be because it's a lot worse, but mainly, by being so much worse, it kind of gives away what he did. This video's fans obviously want it back up, but if it goes back up and it's obviously much worse written now, the 10+ million people who saw it the first time, potentially even more than once, will wonder why it's different and look into why and maybe find out. But if it stays down, people will wonder why it's down and look into why and find out. It's like he's trying to delay the inevitable wider discovery of what he did by letting the video exist, but as quietly as possible. So no one wonders where the video went, but not too many people see it and notice the differences. It's a precarious situation and I don't envy him, but he does deserve it. Right now he looks like a plagiarist and a liar, and a coward who's willing to ruin his own video and let it gather dust unlisted in the corner to try and hide what he did. To be fair, the new version now actually cites Riley's article. Whenever a section was too difficult to change but too significant to remove, he keeps it in and cites the article at the bottom. In the original, there were several places where he quoted the same sources Riley quoted, and in this version, just to be safe, he also cites the article to make it clear that's where he got it. The description of this version also acknowledges the talented Mr. Riley and links to his work. This would have been cool if he'd done all this the first time and not tried to hide it, but this is like if Philip re-uploaded a very slightly changed version of the plagiarized videos and just put "Thanks to Boomstick Gaming" in the description. It's too late to hide what he's done, though that hasn't stopped him from trying. Oh, late breaking update. A couple weeks ago, the Man in Cave re-upload became public again. I wondered how he would stop people noticing its weird changes. Then, days later, he uploaded this year's new video, so people's attention is onto the next thing now. The only people who really noticed the video coming back are the, hardcore fans. This was a real clever boy move. If I wanted to sneak my weirdly changed re-upload back out without too many people noticing, this is how I'd do it, and all I'd have to do next was hope no one ever makes the video I'm making right now. Oops. Right, my eyes have gone fuzzy, so it's time to get back up. Ah, my knees really hurt too. Okay, I threw out an IKEA Poang to make room for this beanbag chair, and it's rubbish. I love sacks full of balls, but not this much. Don't get a beanbag chair. Oh, God! Hey, the mic's still out of frame. That's nice, that never happens. I don't know, a proper apology would be nice. And maybe an explanation for why it happened. As far as I can tell, this is the
Right, I'm
only
not even
video
looking at
where
my
he's just
tracker.
ripped something
What's up
off
with that?
like this.
There you go.
I hope. You know, why did he do it for this one? Really, I just want to know where he got £33. I'm a simple man with simple needs. Yorkshire puddings with a little bit of gravy on top, and explanations for discrepancies in numbers.
This
My parents
seems
never took me to
crazy.
see a psychologist, so I assume that's normal. In the meantime, I'm very happy to accept the award for Jack's Film's second best video of 2022. The version from 2022 is gone. Get it off the list, Jack. Bump me up. Now, what's the first place one? And how do I destroy it? Oh, it's
Well,
the
there's
steamed
dry
hams
form
one where
here.
Navigator did like a
Oh,
million
man.
different styles. That one's really good. And it even tells you which styles it's doing and when in the description. This cartoon cites its sources better than half the stuff I covered in this video. Well, I guess I'll settle for second place. This time. So, there we have it. A bunch of examples of plagiarism, why it happens, why it's wrong, and all the ways it can result in destructive results. With these 4 examples, I think I'm ready to reach some kind of conclusion. Just don't touch the screen or move the mouse. There's no way you haven't seen the runtime. You've probably guessed what's coming. Where's the part where he turns out to be on a green screen and the video's about someone else? Congratulations, you figured it out. You know all my tricks. The student becomes the master. Master of shit? It was real the whole time! Ah! Last time I wanted to research one thing and tripped and learned too much. This time I had the breakdown and worked backwards. We understand why this shit is wrong now and the damage it can do. The piles of money people make from stealing other people's words and ideas and work. But there's one group more important than historians or journalists or anyone else with a real job, and that's gay people. You know what's worse than stealing from established journalists who in the end are doing okay? Stealing from small queer writers or creators from marginalized groups who weren't even paid for their work in the first place. Stealing from the writings of dead people who passed away doing the activism you pretend to do. Stealing from the very people who fund your videos, the people you claim to be defending. This video is about James Somerton.
Oh my god. Who's this guy?
James Somerton is a gay YouTuber with a degree in business administration who frequently refers to himself as a marketing expert.
Okay.
I'm a YouTuber, marketing expert, and film school grad. I'm also gay.
Cool. In 2014, he briefly made videos about geek stuff, reviewing Marvel movies and so on. Several years later, when video essays became a popular format, he started making those, with a focus on queer characters in media and LGBT film history, and occasionally anime, such as this really successful video about the fascism of Attack on Titan, which has mysteriously disappeared. Where did it go? I wonder what happened there. Somerton is doing great by the standards of queer YouTube, in terms of views, ad revenue, sponsorships, Patreon income, and donations on his live streams. The man is doing extremely well financially in a field where people generally struggle to do this full time. In many ways, James Somerton is a success story our entire community should be proud of. Not to rain on this pride parade, but whenever I saw a video by James in my recommendations, I would have to stop watching because it quickly became clear to me he didn't know what he was talking about. The first video of his I ever saw was about Disney's relationship with the queer community, and in it he claims Disney set up an event called Gay Night and claimed to give the profits to charity, but actually kept the money.
During the 1990s, Disney's parks also tried profiting from their LGBT fans by creating Gay Night, a one-night-a-year event at the parks where LGBT folk would be the main guests. It was a big hit. Initially, the revenue was all to be donated to the Aid for AIDS Foundation, but by
got shit on.
1995, donations to the charity had dried up. And Disney was keeping all of the profits for themselves.
He's misremembering a really well-known event. Gay Night was not set up by Disney, they didn't sanction it. A travel agency rented the park out for the night, and they kept the money they were supposed to have donated. This is a bit sloppy, but then he claims the more progressive CEO Bob Iger expanded Gay Nights into full Gay Day events.
Under his stewardship, Disney switched from the once-a-year Gay Night at Disney parks to the full Gay Days event, rebranding the occasion into a more family-friendly affair.
Now, obviously, Iger couldn't rebrand something Disney wasn't doing and had no control over. Gay Days is actually a completely separate event, which is also unofficial and unsanctioned by Disney. Also, it started before Gay Night and 15 years before Iger became CEO. It's kind of impressive how wrong this was. He's giving fucking Disney credit for the actions of independent queer people. It really downplays the work that people put into organizing stuff like gay days. It's super disappointing, honestly. The first official Disney Pride Night happened this year, 3 years after he made this video. That's how far off the mark he was on this. Whenever I saw another Summerton video in the wild, I'd give it another shot and quickly have to give up again. In his Yuri on Ice video, he claimed the show never went into explicitly gay territory because it aired early in the evening on Japanese television, and there's a law on the books preventing showing homosexuality that early.
Japan has certain laws, such as what time of night a queer-centric show can actually be aired on TV. This show was slated for an earlier time slot in the night because it's first and foremost a sports anime. In order for the quiet part to be as loud as the creator wanted, it would have to have had a much later time slot than the network wanted.
This is a common myth made up by Western fans of the show to explain why it wasn't gayer. They wanted to, but it was illegal. How convenient. But that law doesn't work that way, and even if it did, Yuri on Ice aired at 2:30 AM in the morning, the gay witching hour. They could do whatever they wanted. But now I see people continuing to spread this lie, linking Summerton's video as proof it's true. James is helping to reinforce misinformation by not checking whatever he hears on Twitter before he spreads it, which is a bit concerning. Basically, I can't really watch James's videos because I care a lot about the stuff he talks about, and I can tell he's not really checked what he's saying, and that really gets to me. Normally in this situation, I would just not watch his videos and live my life, but over the last couple of years, Summerton has been repeatedly accused of plagiarism. In response, Summerton has claimed he never ripped off anyone, and the times he did weren't even that bad anyway.
If I had been plagiarizing videos, I wouldn't have a channel. I would be called out all the time by people saying he stole my shit, but I don't plagiarize. The one time that there actually was plagiarism, it was by mistake, and I fixed it immediately, and it is no longer in my video. And the other two accusations, one was silly.
That's an interesting way of saying you didn't do it.
When 3 or 4 separate videos have 3 or 4 separate plagiarisms.
Oh, what the fuck? Call back? Wait, Twilight Town is like giga-loaded. What the
Summerton
fuck?
is telling the truth here. There are not
There's like a
3 or
bajillion
4
checks there.
accusations. Whenever these allegations are brought up, however, a fan of his will normally pop up to accuse them of harassing a gay man and claim this is all part of a deliberate homophobic campaign against a queer creator. And as an open bisexual who knows what the internet is like, I'm vigilant to the possibility the phobes are making a fuss about nothing again to take down a fellow gay boy. It does happen, so keeping this possibility in mind, I looked at what he'd been accused of for myself, weighed up all the evidence as objectively as I could, and it quickly became clear he did do it. He's a massive plagiarist. In fact, there's a bunch of stuff no one else has found yet. He's just convinced his audience to attack people when they notice. And the worst part is, they do it in the name of defending a gay creator, when many of the people he has financially benefited from stealing from are queer themselves. I've never seen anyone try to put together a full explanation of what exactly happened here, because his fans will threaten you into silence for trying, which means there is no solid body of evidence to point to, so James can freely lie about what happened without anyone to contradict him. I'd like to take the opportunity to go through what happened here, so people can see what happened without it being filtered through James and make up their own minds. So, let's clear all this up once and for all, shall we? In July 2020, Summerton uploaded Evil Queens, a queer look at Disney history, a 1 hour and 8-minute video about Disney's relationship with the queer community. This original upload of the video has since been deleted for reasons which will become clear. As the video reached its audience, some viewers began noticing similarities between the video and the book Tinkerbells and Evil Queens by Sean P. Griffin. James opens with a present-day example of Disney being bad about gay content on their platforms, and then says we need to explore Disney's history of doing this. The next 45 minutes are almost word for word taken from Griffin's book.
Fantasy is often described as a method of escape from the trials and tribulations of everyday reality. Living in a society that has outlawed homosexual desire, categorized it as a medical shmee, is constantly at Hook's side, and although Hook is the maniacal master of the relationship, Shmee is obviously his prospects brighten, though, when he overhears of a young man cub who is wandering alone in the jungle. He whispers to himself, "How delightful. and vows to arrange a rendezvous with the boy.
Most of this video is just James reading a book into the camera.
In the number, Ursula uses various methods to convince Ariel to sell her soul, from looking sorry and saint-like to shimmying madly in excitement.
Throughout this video, James uses parts of the book where Griffin quotes someone else. Like here, this is from an essay by Cynthia Erb. James just keeps reading and doesn't tell you he's quoting anyone, and even changes it slightly, almost like he knows it's wrong and is trying to get away with it.
In its use of vocalist Pat Carroll's ability to slide up and down the musical register, from shrieks to baritones, Poor Unfortunate Souls is an unmistakable send-up of the campy female impersonation numbers of underground queer films in the early days of Hollywood.
When he rips off Griffin quoting more well-known writers like Susan Sontag, he reads them out and puts the quote on screen. It looks like when he thinks he can get away with it, he passes obscure writers' words off as his own. He's already stealing from Griffin, why stop there? Somerton reuses a section of the book where Griffin quotes gay journalist and activist Jack Babuccio, who passed away of AIDS in 1990. Griffin explains who he is and discusses his quote, mentioning by name repeatedly. You know, the way you quote someone and discuss what they said. Somerton removes all mention and discussion of Babuccio, but he still steals everything he says.
And amping up that depiction to an 11. Camp, by focusing on the outward appearance of a role, implies that roles, and in particular gender roles, are superficial. A matter of style.
He then skips a few paragraphs, since the book discusses what Babuccio meant by this, and that would give away James didn't write it. I didn't even think it was possible, but somehow James managed to steal 2 queer authors' words at once. He copied a book word for word, and even removed mention of the people being quoted so it sounded like he was saying their words too. That's not something you do by mistake. That's something you do when you want to take the credit, which he does. In future videos, James talks about Evil Queens as if it was all his ideas.
But other movies require a bit more digging. In Evil Queens, I talked about the queerness of the 90s Renaissance Disney movies, especially Aladdin and The Lion King. When I first mentioned this to people, they thought I was crazy. Then I explained it to them, and they came around to seeing it my way.
And everyone clapped. James claims this video is his work and a weird, bold new approach to media, when it's word for word from a 20-year-old book. It's ridiculous. He appears to have found and replaced words like gay and homosexual to queer or LGBT.
Another narrative strand in Disney's films that would have a great appeal to the queer community is the tale of the outside. Labeled it as a sin against God and allowed and often encouraged violent acts against LGBT people, queer culture has unsurprisingly embraced queer culture, particularly gay male culture, has long held a fascination with fantasy. The close association of gay men to the world of fantasy has attributed to some of the most common insults for gay men in Western culture.
Somerton never mentioned the book or its author anywhere. There was nothing in the credits, the description, no citations, no mention of his name. Nothing. When YouTubers use a book as a major source of research, usually they mention it or put it in the background on their set. He did film himself next to a book, but it's not Tinkerbell's. It's Disney War, a commonly cited source in videos covering Disney stuff. He's trying to look like he did research without giving away where he got all the words he's saying. Eventually, a Twitter user who noticed the similarities started comparing the works closely and wrote a thread showcasing hundreds and hundreds of words worth of examples of the video directly copying Griffin's book. She eventually asked him why he didn't credit it, and he responded that he hadn't started crediting source materials yet when he made the video. He then finally added a reference to the book to the description almost 2 months after it had been uploaded. He'd gone with the internet historian method, put an acknowledgement of your theft in the description later and pretend that makes stealing okay. The thread's author thanked him for admitting it, but pointed out adding a line of text to near the bottom of the description is deceptive, considering the sheer amount of writing he copied. It looked like he was trying to get away with it by hiding some text somewhere no one would see. In response, he did the professional adult thing and blocked her and started tweeting vaguely about being wrongly accused of plagiarism, even though he always credits authors in the video description, which is a very funny thing to say when he didn't do that until the person he's currently complaining about pointed out he didn't. In just over a day, James went from saying, "Whoops, I'll put his name in the description, learning as I go, smiley face," to "I always credit authors in video descriptions, fuck off with your accusations." He also made a YouTube community post with the same text as the tweets. However, this turned out to be a Streisand'ian bargain, because people started asking what he was being criticized asked for. Here's where it gets really interesting. James responded to one of them with a new example. Something like this had already happened before. James had made a video called Unrequited, The History of Queerbaiting, and this video had also been accused of stealing from a documentary called The Celluloid Closet. So this wasn't even the first time he'd been caught doing something like this. The author of the thread noticed this comment and looked at the description of the Unrequited video, and there was a note hidden towards the bottom thanking The Celluloid Closet in a familiarly vague way. Somerton had been caught stealing something before, and he tried to get away with it the same way, by hiding something in the description. The comments section was full of people saying thanking the documentary in the description wasn't good enough since he copied a shit ton of it. She then tweeted she was considering comparing The Celluloid Closet and Unrequited side by side, like she'd done with Evil Queens. It looks like James saw this tweet and realized someone was about to prove he'd done plagiarism in multiple videos, because suddenly he set both Unrequited and Evil Queens to private so no one could watch them, and made a post announcing this. The thread's author mentioned this happened and included these screenshots of the announcement. Let's put this on a timeline. This tweet came almost exactly 12 hours after saying she was thinking of checking the other video. In her screenshot, the announcement was only 11 hours old. James hid Unrequited within an hour of someone saying they were thinking of checking it for plagiarism. That's not suspect at all. In his post, he explained he was the victim of a targeted harassment campaign, had received death threats, and he hid these videos because he didn't want people who want him dead seeing them. In the comments section, he also claimed the thread's author had been harassing and attacking him for the last 48 hours on Twitter, and her followers had been hunting down his home and work addresses. Any harassment or threats Somerton may have received are unconscionable and wrong. I want to clarify right now that if anyone harasses Somerton on my behalf, they are worse than him and will not see the light of heaven. I must underscore, however, the original author was not unnecessarily rude in her criticisms, was straightforward and polite when speaking to James directly, and when he talked about harassment, she was very clear where she stood on that as well. Somerton accused her of personally stalking him anyway, and starting a harassment campaign against him, threatening his life and trying to track down his address, with her obscure thread of tweets. The author's account was very small at the time, with less than 150 followers, and barely anyone had seen the thread until Somerton accused it of trying to kill him. Instead of addressing his mistake head-on and holding himself accountable, Somerton span a narrative about how the most polite critic he could have possibly gotten was the head of a targeted campaign against him, while trying to hide the evidence. On the other hand, the author of this thread has received a lot of harassment from Somerton's fans over the years, to the point they eventually changed their username and locked their account. You literally can't see these tweets anymore. When I managed to contact her with questions, she asked me to reference her as little as possible because she's afraid of it starting again. Somerton's fans believed they were defending him from someone threatening his life, remember? So they were pretty fucking vicious about it. And that is what he was telling them. When he made a video addressing the plagiarism, he titled it, "About Those Death Threats."
Somebody watched my Evil Queens video, my video about Disney, and realized that there are quotes in the video that are directly taken from the book Tinkerbells and Evil Queens. They went ahead and started accusing me of plagiarism. Somebody read their thread and decided to message me some death threats, as you do on the internet. I think she has something like 154 Twitter followers, something like that, and some of the people of that 154 decided, hey, let's threaten to kill him. But
fuck this guy.
That's why someone doxed me and threatened to kill me.
He like fake crying? Forgot to credit the book, which made up the vast majority of his script.
Kind of flighty when a video is done and I'm putting the credits together, so I don't always remember to put everything in the credits. It's kind of been a problem with me in the past. That has happened before.
He then compared his video to serious documentaries and how they're often based on books.
You know, like a lot of documentaries, they're based on books that come out. And so, yes, going forward, I just want you to know my videos may well be based off of books.
Normally you get permission to adapt people's books into documentaries before you make them and release them to the public for money. It's really hard not to see this for what it is. A guy making up a series of bad excuses after being caught plagiarizing. Let's just think about this for a second. If James was honestly adapting a book Why would he film himself on his set for an hour sitting next to a different book and not even think to mention the book he's adapting even exists? Somerton went out of his way not to mention his primary source, so people wouldn't read it and realize he copied it.
So yeah, I guess what I'm just trying to say is that yes, there are quotes in the video and sections of the video that are taken from the book.
Oh my
it's
god.
Entirely based on that. There's, you know, most of what's in the video is my own original content.
How does he explain what he did to the
not
quote
true.
from Babushio? He doesn't even try.
And if you don't want to support me anymore because not everything is entirely my original thoughts, then that's fine. I would never have had the time to do that amount of research for a YouTube video.
This video and all his YouTube posts about the plagiarism accusations were deleted soon after. I think Somerton realized there was no decent explanation for what he had done, so trying to explain it made him look worse. Instead, he started tweeting that he'd sent the video to the author to ask for permission to put the video up.
Oh, never mind. It's still really bad. Oh well.
Really was just trying to adapt the book. James insists this is the case. But at this point, I'm not sure I can trust him when he says things. The author of the thread was just comparing the video to the one book she noticed, and mentions around the 53-minute mark he moves on to stuff not covered widely by the book, like Mulan.
Disney's Mulan is, however unintentionally, a queer narrative.
First of all, it's a little bit weird that his video, word for word adapting the book,
Okay, good.
stops adapting it and starts winging it partway through. But let me ask you this. Wouldn't it be really fucking bad for him if it turned out he also stole the new stuff from somewhere else? Yeah, it is bad, because he did!
Disney's Mulan is, however unintentionally, a queer narrative that explores both gender identity and sexual orientation. It is not, as it is often simplistically described, a story about a disempowered woman who becomes empowered by masculinity.
It's almost impressive how hard he leaned into something he knew was a lie people could check. James, what were you thinking? What was your plan here? The section on Mulan is taken from an article at Shondaland by Asian American trans person Jez Tom about how the film speaks to their experience with gender. This section is almost word for word stolen from this article.
Mulan as king progressively works their way toward achieving manhood, which is defined by catching fish, carrying heavy things, and of course, wielding a big stick.
He makes a few changes. Since this article is one specific queer trans person writing about how they related to the film, Somerton removes their personal experiences and moves on to the next sentence.
First, in Honor to Us All, the village women attempt to sculpt Mulan into an ideal woman. More specifically, an ideal wife. Mulan fails the test of womanhood when her meeting with the matchmaker goes horribly awry.
Sometimes, though, he keeps the stories in and makes a slight change.
Mulan's gender journey over the course of the movie feels very familiar to many trans and non-binary people.
Jesus! Is he really doing this instead of just crediting the person he got all this from? He does this repeatedly.
Many trans men in particular feel a kinship with Mulan as the character prepares to convince everyone they're a man, practicing their swagger, affecting their voice to a lower register, and scrambling to settle on a boy name.
Somerton doesn't just steal another article when he's done stealing from a book. He deliberately changes it to avoid acknowledging the original author and their experiences so he can pretend he wrote it. Just for the record, I found an article on another website that quotes this article by Tom. Here's how quoting works, James. It's clear who wrote this, and even links to it as well for the reader's convenience. Meanwhile, James just pasted these words into his script and read it out loud like he came up with it.
As Mulan acknowledges this failure in reflection, she poses a question that
most
trans people know intimately. When will my reflection show who I am inside?
It goes without saying you shouldn't just take stuff and reuse it without crediting them. Write your own videos, man! Well, maybe he shouldn't do that either, because if you've been paying attention, which you have, you notice this is the video where James said gay night was Lord Disney's brilliant idea because he loves gays so much. Is this part stolen? Well, kind of, yeah. Griffin's book correctly explains the gay night situation. The part where James talks about this is in a brief section that appears to be written by him, connecting including the parts written by Griffin and Jez Tom. We're graced with a whole minute and 30 seconds actually written by James. How nice of him. It seems like when writing his own new section to connect the two writers he stole, he wrote a half-remembered story about gay nights he got from the same book. So the part of the video that was technically his was full of obvious mistakes. This is, well, it's not a good sign. There's a bit of a theme developing. These guys don't know their history. They're copying it without really learning it. So when they try to be unique, they have nothing to say, and none of what they say is accurate. Around the time he re-uploaded Evil Queens, acknowledging one of the people he plagiarized, Summerton also unprivated the queerbaiting video, with what seemed to be no changes, except an acknowledgement at the top saying the stolen portion is based on the Celluloid Closet and its documentary counterpart. Before the video went down, the description didn't look like this. It just had a special thanks hidden at the bottom. So while it was down, he'd changed it. Looks like he settled on using based on as an excuse for stealing things when he's caught. I guess we should take a look at exactly how based on it is. The Celluloid Closet is a documentary about the portrayal of homosexuality across the history of Hollywood, with plenty of interviews with film historians, writers, directors, and actors. The structure and narrative is based on the book of the same name by Vito Russo, who passed away from complications of AIDS before the documentary could be made. The first 30 minutes of Unrequited is just the Celluloid Closet. James Illuminati'd it. He downloaded a copy of the documentary, loosely paraphrased it, and as footage for the video he uses the same clips the documentary used of the movies it talked about. He also reuses the more pivotal interviews, adding his own titles so it looks like he got them from somewhere else. James wants to pretend to be a scholar of film history, when in fact he watched a documentary and is now pretending it's his. He never credits the documentary as a source when he's doing this. He even pulls my favorite trick, which I've come to call the Blair Classic. He quotes film historian Richard Dyer.
Your ideas about who you are don't just come from inside you, they come from the culture. And in this culture, they come especially from the movies. So we learn from movies what it means to be a man or a woman, what it means to have sexuality. Richard Dyer, film historian.
It's actually Richard Dyer. Would you like to know how I know that?
Your ideas about who you are don't just come from inside you, they come from the culture. And in this culture, they come especially from the movies.
He has his own special spin on this trick, too.
The lesbian experience isn't really expressed in the film at all, and even Shirley MacLaine has gone on record in 1996 saying William Wyler, the director, never even spoke to her about the lesbian elements.
What he's neglecting to mention is the place MacLaine went on record in 1996 is the Celluloid Closet.
At the time that we made the picture, there were not real discussions about homosexuality. None of us were really aware.
James is dimly aware what he's doing is shit, so he's taking baby steps to avoid it. Without solving the actual problem, he's remaking a documentary using their ideas and footage.
Gore Vidal, screenwriter of the film, said this in 1996.
Let's say these two guys, they had been lovers, and now they're meeting again, and the Roman wants to start it out.
He's flipped the footage and added weird filters to try to avoid triggering the YouTube bots, which correctly would flag this video as just large chunks of a copyrighted documentary. I doubt he's even seen many of the films he's talking about here. He's just showing clips from the documentary, quoting the documentary, or straight up repeating what it said himself.
Homosexuality is a thing. It does exist, but it's not something good moral people should talk about.
Homosexuality was finally being talked about on the screen, but only as something that nice people didn't talk about.
I know a lot of documentaries are based on books, but not a lot of them are based on other documentaries someone already made, James. Celluloid Closet ends with a heartfelt acknowledgement of Vito Russo, the book's late author. James's video, which takes pains to tell you was written, filmed, and edited by James Summerton, also ends by saying it is in memory of Vito Russo. This one line of text is the only acknowledgement of Russo or the documentary in this entire fucking video. For those keeping track, this is the second gay writer and activist who tragically passed away of AIDS in 1990, whose words James has passed off as his own. There were obviously comments on the video pointing out he's just remade a documentary for 30 minutes, and James's reply was to insist it was impossible not to plagiarize the Celluloid Closet, because it's such a good history lesson. This is his main defense when this comes up. Of course it's derivative. It's the only place I could get information on the topic, which implies James has not engaged with the last 65 years of writing about gay people in the film industry. He also claims he hasn't simply posted it as as his own, even though he'd never acknowledged the documentary until someone caught him and then had to sneak one into the description. If he wanted to pay respect to his main source, he could have said, "in this documentary," instead of "in 1996, but I won't say where." But in this reply, he says something very funny. He insists he expanded on some of the ideas in this section, implying he did some of his own work. One thing did stick out to me as new. The documentary covers Rebel without a cause, but not for very long. When James talks about it, he goes on for longer, in ways that aren't paraphrasing the documentary for once. So this must be the new section. All that original work that proves he didn't just rip off a documentary. Wouldn't it be really fucking funny if it turned out he stole this part too? Oh, you bet your ass he did!
Dean's character Jim is a teenager kicking against authority and parental neglect, who becomes both friend and fascination to Minio's Play-Doh, a lonely younger kid.
Despite being based on an existing documentary, Somerton takes a break in the middle to steal from someone else. He stole Peter Howell's article on Rebel word for word, not even trying to cover it up with find and replacing text this time.
If you don't pick up on that from the photo of hunky Alan Ladd that Plato has taped inside of his locker, or the looks of adoration he gives Jim, it becomes abundantly clear when he makes a coded declaration of love to Jim late in the film.
It's not like I lifted it and posted it as my own, my foot. He changes one thing. The current date.
Plato is obviously gay, although it's easier to say that in 2020 than it was in 1955.
Peter Howell, whose shit he jacked, is not acknowledged in the video or the description or anywhere else and never has been. Like with Jez Tom, this section was never caught, until now, so he hasn't had the chance to go back and pretend it's based on it. It starts to feel like Somerton is just an extremely cynical loser with a business degree who, like Blair, and around the same time even, saw the success of video essays and decided to half-ass his way into them by stealing shit. This is on the whole how business people see creativity. They don't respect it. It doesn't matter, it's beneath them, so they can take it and say it's theirs if they want. But at this point my interest was fully peaqueed. I was just looking at the original allegations to see if they were true, to check for myself. But even in just looking at those two, I found 2 more places he stole from that other people hadn't even found yet. And if it was that easy to find more, how deep does this rabbit hole go? These videos were made over 2 years ago. Did James learn his lesson from being repeatedly caught plagiarizing and at least stop? Well, his next video, Society and Queer Horror, has a script supervisor in the opening credits, and this person would go on to be his co-writer for many future videos. That doesn't necessarily mean the videos are better though. I mean, first of all, that's not how you spell supervisor, so write that down. But he even has another writer now, so surely he started making his own original videos and things got better? Well, things got much, much worse. Society and Queer Horror, or as the video calls itself, Deep Cuts Society and Queer Horror, steals so many words from so many writers it genuinely makes me think I've traveled to an alternate dimension where plagiarism is fine!
4 girls end up in the same school and find each other essentially by cruising the hallways. Given Carrie's simultaneous status as horror film victim and monster, alongside the narrative concerning her burgeoning sexuality and attraction to boys, or when Ripley asserts authority in the team after Dallas is caught by the alien, Ash, the male robot, feels threatened and attempts to help Ripley regain his masculinity. It's fun, messy, mean, sad, campy, and self-aware. That's the key variable that makes Hellraiser so special.
I can't show you how messed up this is without ruining this video's runtime even more than I already have. So let's use visuals. Here's a transcript of all the words James says in this hour and 25-minute long video. And here's all the parts that are plagiarized. Each author's name is in a different color for convenience. This video steals roughly 10,000 words from 18 different places. And this is just the stuff I found. There could be more. A truly staggering portion of this video is James staring into his prompter, reading words he got by Googling movie name gay. I wish I could show you everything he copied, but we'd be here forever. This is just one video, and he makes so many of these. And now we know how! But Somerton thinks he's figured out a loophole. It's a familiar spin on an old classic. It opens with a horror-themed credit sequence, which claims the video is based on the works of, and briefly shows a bunch of names. These are some of the people he plagiarized. So if any of his plagiarism is noticed, he can say, no, I name-dropped them in the opening for literally 1 second. So it's fine. This is the stupidest thing I've ever... Anyone watching this video would assume this is Summerton showing his sources, or people whose work he read while writing the video, not people whose writing is the video, based on the works of Colin Arison. What does this mean? There's no way of knowing what Colin's contribution to the video was. Does this mean he inspired a section? That he gets quoted? That James read him and used some of those ideas? This mention means 21 minutes into the video, the next 5 full minutes are word for word copied from an essay he wrote.
Benshoff recognizes Hellraiser for some of its visual characteristics, but comes to the conclusion that too often the representation of Barker's monster queers seems similar to those produced by right-wing ideologues.
I don't think I need to tell you, this is just plagiarism with an even stranger excuse than normal. Summerton never tells you when he's just reading other people's words, because then people would know he didn't write anything. He's hidden their name at the beginning and in the end credits at the very bottom, after a long list of patrons, so he can make a video out of other people's words without ever saying when he's actually doing it. 4 minutes is just Andrew Park's article about the film The Craft, with slight changes to try to hide it, and his usual LGBT to queer word swapping.
The film follows the story of 4 teenage girls who each grow up feeling different in one way or another. Special and above the fray of their peers, or rejected by them entirely, as so many queer teens have experienced. The most memorable character, by all accounts, is Nancy, and she's already out as a witch, openly practicing her craft. She wears goth lipstick and black, laced-up Stevie Nicks boots. She has a sexual history and a noose hanging in her locker. Bonnie is a girl with self-image issues due to scars that cover her arms and back.
Swapping back and arms to arms and back doesn't work. We can still tell.
Chris, your typical teenage movie football jock, persists in making bullying comments about the 3 spiritual deviants, who he calls the bitches of Eastwick, because he's just so clever.
Wow, what a great addition, Jimmy. You really spiced up that anecdote, made it your own, put your fucking spin on it. Oh well, this is a bit skeevy, but at least Park's name is in the credits, so people can at least see his name and check him out. No, he's not in the credits. Half the people James plagiarized in this video didn't make it in, he forgot. This whole "it wasn't plagiarism, I said it was based on them at the start" excuse really doesn't work when you forget to put half their fucking names in. My personal theory is James came up with this phony excuse during the Evil Queens fiasco when he was already making this video, so when he made this list, he'd already forgotten half the people he plagiarized. The segment about aliens is completely taken from Bart Bishop's essay Queering James Cameron's Aliens.
Aliens is curiously progressive in its sexual politics overall, especially for a movie released during the Reagan years. Take, for instance, the exchange between Hudson and Frost. This isn't just queer behavior being portrayed in a positive manner, but one of the many ways that the movie obfuscates gender and supports a pansexual ethos.
My favorite part is when he reuses an extremely long quote from author David Grevin, along with Bishop's exact commentary on it, with a very slight change.
David Grevin, in Demeter and Persephone in Space, observes, Bishop, the cyborg, Grevin further suggests that the aliens, and especially the alien queen, represent a cisgendered heteronormative status quo that resents the changing times. So while Grevin suggests that the conservative alien queen has contempt for the queer family dynamic, the metaphor could go even further. Cameron creates a future where gender norms have all but disappeared.
He changed "I'd go even further" to "the metaphor could go even further," suggesting he is at least uncomfortable using someone else's words in first person. The copying of Bishop's Aliens essay was eventually pointed out on his website. Bishop responded calling this very strange. Bishop also made a Facebook post about being plagiarized, which is disheartening to read. This situation demonstrates perfectly the way respect and social status factor into stealing. James fundamentally doesn't respect the people he's copying. He knows to quote people when they're well known, but when he thinks he can get away with it, he doesn't. A lot of queer analysis is sadly unrecognized, and James exploited this obscurity for clout and hid a little excuse where people will miss it, but only for about half of them. As with several previous authors, Bishop was not credited. However, the video's credits do contain David Grevin, one of the authors Bishop quoted. At first I thought Grevin was in the credits because he quotes him by name in this section, but no, he's in here because he also stole from Grevin.
In terms as resonant as they were phobic, Scream was a cry of despair over an apparent amorality in the millennial or late Gen X youth, especially in the male population. The homoeroticism of the Billy-Stu relationship, which the film develops into an all but explicit queer love affair, shows both the unpredictable, anarchic, bewildering behavior of the generation and the shifts in male gender roles synonymous with it.
By complete coincidence, the competent writers he's plagiarizing are familiar with each other's work and sometimes even quote each other. Grevin doesn't actually come up by name when James reads his words out loud for 5.5 fucking minutes. The authors James steals only get their name mentioned in the video if someone else he was stealing happened to mention them. I'm losing my fucking mind! When he quotes Bishop quoting Grevin, he puts this text up like he's quoting them. However, like Illuminati, he doesn't list the source in any useful way. This is because he doesn't know the source. He got it from this article, and he can't list the article as a source because he doesn't want you checking and finding out what he's done. It's the same reason he didn't film himself next to evil queens. He'd be giving the game away. Ironically, this is how the Bishop plagiarism was discovered in the first place. Someone was trying to find the source of one of these quotes and Googled it and discovered the whole segment was a quote. Somerton's videos are anti-educational. They go out of their way to hide where they come from or where to learn more. But this gives me an idea for a hot new game. Go to a random section of Somerton's video and just Google the words he's saying. Okay, I'm gonna literally click on a random part of the video right now. I'm gonna hold my mouse up to the microphone so you can hear it.
Dedicates an entire subplot to the romance between Richie and Eddie.
Okay. And here we go. One result! Well, that was easy!
It, by Stephen King, was published in 1986. And has made a lasting cultural impression. The novel inspired a miniseries, 2 movies, and ruined clowns for generations of children. And adults, frankly.
Oh, good one. This one is an analysis of Stephen King's It by Rachel Brands. He reads this article for about 4.5 minutes. And Brands is one of many people whose name didn't make it into his dumb fucking credits. I reached out to Brands about her essay being used in this manner, and she told me she'd never been asked permission to use it, but she already knew it happened. You see, she was a fan of Somerton's work, and even supported him financially on Patreon. So she saw this video as soon as it went out, and realized it was copying her. This is so fucked up. A queer writer who supported James financially because she thought he was making original work discovered she was funding the plagiarism of work like hers, including literally hers. Brands was never paid by the website she wrote this essay for, since at the time she was writing for exposure, which she definitely didn't get when James didn't even fucking credit her. Somerton makes a lot of money doing this. Tens of thousands of dollars in Patreon income, ad revenue, his many sponsorships, and another massive payday we haven't even gotten to yet. Brands has never been compensated for her contribution to James's financial success, and she's not the only person James plagiarized in the section on Stephen King's It alone. After reading Brands without crediting her for almost 5 minutes, suddenly he starts saying new words.
Childhood trauma looms under the skin of the Losers Club well into adulthood.
Wow, did James write part of his video all by himself? Nope! It's from the Hollywood Reporter! We've seen this song and dance before, it goes on for ages. I'm just gonna highlight one of the parts he changed because it's so funny.
Like every person on the planet, the losers remain trapped in their trauma. They've just found new ways to cope. Richie ended up telling jokes and becoming rich and successful, but always alone.
Somerton specifically removed mention of a character finding success using other people's material. That probably hit a bit too close to home, huh?
The plagiarism thing, it's not a thing.
After several minutes of stealing Joelle Monique's article, the video still has a bunch of runtime left to talk about it.
It is the hate that's unnatural. The hate that is evil.
Oh, for fuck!
When we get into the head of Don Haggerty, Adrian's boyfriend, and the author lets the reader know him, he's sympathetic, he's smart, and loving. He also sees the town for what it is, sees its evil clearly and wants to lead it.
The entire 12-minute long It section is copied from 3 different articles, back to back to back, and only one of the 3 authors is even in these shitty credits. Somerton didn't thank Brands or Monique for the articles about Stephen King's It he stole for money. He did, however, take the opportunity to thank Stephen King! I love it when small indie writers finally get the acknowledgement they deserve. It boggles my tiny mind just how much every tiny thing is stolen in this video. He really briefly, like for 30 seconds, discusses the appeal of witchcraft to queer people, and he steals an article for that too.
Witchcraft, on the other hand, offered a spiritual space where queer people could step into their personal power and explore otherness without shame, guilt, or fear. Furthermore, the idea of a coven creates a space for community.
Based on the works of whoever wrote this sentence. Of the 18 authors I found him stealing from, only 9 of them make it into the opening or closing based on credits. So at least half the people he copied didn't even get a bullshit credit. And that's just what I found. I'm pretty sure I missed some. Maybe he reworded some parts better than others, so it's harder to check. But after seeing how much shit he stole for this video, I have no doubt the blank spaces are just someone else I missed. After this video came out, I think he decided he'd gotten away with it. So he stopped using the based on the works of excuse and just went right back to stealing shit. Here's one of his next videos, Code Breakers, Queer Film Theory and Why It Matters. This video's opening credits are just James, and the description thanks no one, but it's still full of plagiarism. Replacing the queer agenda with a straight agenda does not mean there is not an agenda. Zinc Hero of YouTube loved this line by Summerton so much. What am I willing to bet he stole this line too? Place your bets! Directly into my pocket, because yeah, obviously, you fucking piece of shit!
It also bears mentioning that if a filmmaker doesn't choose to queer history, that doesn't mean they're telling history like it was. It just means they're straighting history. Replacing the gay agenda with a straight agenda does not mean that there's no agenda.
Summerton's fans praise him for the quality of his writing, unaware it's not his. Since the true authors' names have been erased from the story, they are prevented from learning who they actually enjoyed and being able to go read more. I find this genuinely sad. James, how do you manage to churn out so many high-quality videos so frequently? I know how! At one point, he starts explaining basic film theory. Not basic by nerd standards. I mean, it's like he's just reading Wikipedia. Actually, not like.
Today, there are many different schools of film theory. So let's talk about them. The structuralist film theory emphasizes how films convey meaning through the use of codes and conventions, not dissimilar to the way languages are used to construct meaning in communication. An example of this is understanding how the simple combination of shots can create an additional idea. The blank expression on a person's face, an appetizing meal, and then back to the person's face. While nothing in this sequence literally expresses hunger or desire, the juxtaposition of the images convey that meaning to the audience. Marxist film theory is one of the oldest forms of film theory. Sergei Eisenstein and many other Soviet filmmakers in the 1920s expressed ideas of Marxism through film. In fact, the Hegelian dialectic was considered best displayed in film editing through the development of the montage, a Russian invention. Eisenstein's solution was to shun narrative structure by eliminating the individual protagonist in favor of telling stories where the action is moved by a group, and the story is told through a clash of one image against the next, whether in composition, motion, or idea. Formalist film theory is a theory of film study that is focused on the formal or technical elements of a film, i.e. the lighting, scoring, sound, set design, use of color, shot composition, and editing. It's a major theory of film study today. Formalism, at its most general, considers the synthesis or lack of synthesis of the multiple elements of film production, and the effects, emotional and intellectual, of that synthesis and of the individual elements. For example, let's take the single element of editing. A formalist might study how standard Hollywood continuity editing creates a more comforting effect, and non-continuity or jump cut editing might become more disconcerting or volatile.
Cringe. There's no other word for it. This makes me cringe. It's embarrassing. It speaks volumes what James thinks of video essays as a format. To him, reading Wikipedia is equivalent to what everyone else is doing. I don't know why you would make videos like this unless you were just in it for the money. Where's the joy of doing your own research, your own learning, and getting to share it in your own way? These videos are a cash grab with absolutely zero original thought or soul. I didn't think YouTube videos could have souls, but now I've experienced ones that don't. The end credits don't thank any of the people or wikis who wrote this video, just James and his co-writer Nick. Oh, and he thanks all his patrons who give him thousands of dollars to read Wikipedia to them without telling them. And this puts us onto a related problem with his videos. This might be obvious, but James is a little bit lazy. In Code Breakers, in between the rest of the stealing, he brings up the potential gay overtones in Legend of Korra between Prince Wu and Mako.
Makos will they won't they with Prince Wu.
But I thought the clips from Avatar looked a bit blurry for a video from 2020 when much higher quality sources were available. Did he just Google an old AMV shipping these two characters and download it and slap it in here? No, that would be ridiculous. Yes, of course he did. It was this one. It took 2 minutes to find. He just added black bars to the top and bottom because he's trying to pretend his shit is cinema. This is probably the laziest moment in video essay history. He's downloading other people's videos to use as backing for a voiceover he probably didn't write about characters whose names he can't pronounce. It's like staring into a low bitrate abyss, but it doesn't stare back. James stares back. The phrase "by James Somerton" is doing so much heavy lifting he probably stole that from fucking Atlas. There's a section where he just reads the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy's explanation of what homosexuality is.
As has been frequently noted, the ancient Greeks did not have terms or concepts that correspond to the contemporary dichotomy of heterosexual and homosexual. Probably the most frequent assumption of sexual orientation, at least by ancient Greek authors, is that people who respond biologically to being either. Furthermore, the issue of what biological sex one is attracted to is the character Plutarchus argues that ancient Rome had many parallels to ancient Greece's understanding of same-sex attraction and sexual issues more generally.
He looked up homosexuality in an encyclopedia and pasted it into his fucking script. Oh my god! The lack of effort is a running theme. James doesn't really care what he's saying and is just googling movie name gay, so the quality of some of the places he's copying are not very good. His coverage of Alien 3 in Society and Queer Horror, yeah, there's more people I didn't show you yet, is taken from the Cracked article, 5 Terrible Movies with Awesome Hidden Meanings. People sometimes compliment James for his fancy opening titles with 3D movement and graphics, but he just bought these. Anyone can. Look, here's the place he got Society and Queer Horror's opening. I bought it. Now it's mine. Whee! The opening of Evil Queens, the highest production value part of the whole affair, is just more stuff he bought. I'm not criticizing him here, this is normal and fine, but it's a little surprising to realize James never did any work of any kind during the video making process. He buys the fancy looking bits and gets the rest from an AMV. Presumably he hired a co-writer so he can stop pretending he does any. But that makes the fact they're still full of plagiarism even more shocking. Kat looked at his video about Jeffrey Dahmer and found about 5 places he plagiarized without even checking too hard.
Thus, the term homosexual overkill served to normalize heterosexuality, even heterosexual serial killers, while pathologizing homosexuality.
Look how much effort he put into rewriting the thing he stole to hide it. His dedication to not coming up with his own ideas is almost creepy. This video was a couple months old when I started looking into James. This is recent, and I can't believe how much he's still stealing. The first words in the fucking video were stolen.
We all like true crime. It's very suddenly become one of the most engaging forms of contemporary entertainment.
Where's it going?
He's really extruding the original words here. He's put so much work into changing it, it might have been easier to write something from scratch. But this is James we're talking about. He stops putting in the effort after the first few sentences.
Again, both Bundy and Dahmer were serial killers who tortured and murdered dozens of people, whose families are still alive and can see these tweets and posts on TikTok.
He actually copies the previous section of the article right before, but Kat asked me before I play this part to ask you to pay specific attention to the change he makes here.
There is a thirst for Dahmer, made apparent on TikTok and Twitter, with hordes of white women droning over how attractive he is.
This change is part of a running theme throughout Somerton's work. Misogyny? In the parts of James's videos that he actually writes himself, or rewrites after stealing, he really doesn't like women. I didn't want to open this can of worms, but the thesis of the stuff he stole for this video gets completely fucked up by his rants about women being attracted to serial killers. He argues women are only attracted to Dahmer because he killed gay men and not women, which makes it easier for them to ignore the brutality of his crimes, and if he'd killed women, they wouldn't be so thirsty.
Despite his cannibalism, despite the decades-long erasure of his victims, these women, and mostly teenage girls, are swooning over him. And why not? To our knowledge, Dahmer never killed any teenage girls, or any women at all, so there's a level of disconnection.
Women are attracted to the wrong serial killer, how terrible. But he couldn't stop himself from also complaining about women being into Ted Bundy, who did murder women. He goes off script from the article he's stealing for that section to complain about it even more.
Navigating the ethics of true crime content is tricky. Critics have begun to question the need for entertainment media which is fetishize and sexual and serial killers. In the last 3 years alone, we've seen multiple comments about Ted Bundy. A whole new generation of girls fell head over heels for the infamous killer, which was a grim remake in itself of the real-life Ted Bundy trial. He had fangirls defending him in the press and even begging to marry him. Netflix's social media team actually begged viewers to stop standing Bundy.
He added a whole new bit fantasizing about millennial girls' attraction to a serial killer when, like, no, they were attracted to Zac Efron, the famously attractive celebrity actor. This was a stupid tangent to begin with, but now his own video contains examples of women fancying a serial killer who killed women. So his rant about women loving Dahmer because he didn't kill women makes no sense. Really, he just wanted an excuse to complain women see their gay friends as disposable.
Because unfortunately, to this day, many women still see gay men as nothing more than a fancy accessory, especially teenage girls who lust for the perfect gay best friend. A boy whose sex life is secret, so you never have to hear about it. But he's always there to tell you if your boyfriend's being a jerk. Gay men and boys as a purse or a fancy iPhone case. Something to show off, but ultimately something disposable.
What teenage girl did this to you in high school, James? And why are you inserting fanfiction about her into an article you stole instead of going to therapy? This is the only new stuff he wrote. The rest is stolen. This is all he has to say. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? These insecurities affect how he talks about gay women. The videos are continuously punctuated with tangents about how lesbians have it easier than gay men. In one video, he claims gay women historically saw less legal persecution, and his example is made up.
And if you're wondering why this section is so man-centric, this is because the vast majority of legal persecution of early queers was focused on men. In the legal case of Radcliffe Hall, she, in her book The Well of Loneliness, depicted World War I ambulance drivers as being primarily lesbians. English courts were really not pleased with this depiction, but Women Who Love Women was such an uncomfortable topic for them that they threw her case out of the courts and just let her carry on her happy life.
Over here in reality, Radcliffe Hall was found guilty of obscenity and all copies of her book were ordered destroyed. He's rewriting history to pretend women had it better. This approach to female queers reaches a territory where he doesn't even accept other people's identities if he has a bone to pick. In one video, while trying to argue queer women have it better than men in Hollywood, he misgenders two showrunners.
So why don't gay men get to represent themselves in media? At least media that's widely accepted by the mainstream. Queer women get to represent themselves, at least sometimes. Look at animated hits like Steven Universe or She-Ra and the Princesses of Power.
Indy Stevenson and Rebecca Sugar are trans-masculine and non-binary, respectively. But for the purposes of James's point, they count as women. And if he really doesn't like something, he just assumes a straight woman did it.
The only way I can possibly account for anyone saying that this is straight is a bunch of women and girls who are experiencing the most willful ignorance I've ever seen.
His Yuri on Ice video just guesses anyone who interprets the characters not being gay must be a dumbass woman. He's shockingly committed to this principle. In a video that just came out, he claims he still gets comments on that video from straight women denying the gay anime is gay.
Then again, that video still gets comments from usually straight women, no hating, but still, who incessantly deny that there's any queerness, coded or otherwise, present in that series.
James, how do you know they're straight or women? Did they all say so in their comment? If you don't like something so you assume a woman wrote it, you're doing misogyny. There really isn't another word for this. It's pretty straightforward. Also, I just went through the last year of comments on that video and none exist that make this accusation. He's lying. He just made up straight women to get mad at. As arbiter of gender, James also gets to decide who's queer and who isn't. I don't know who gave him this power, but it means he has a lot of fascinating opinions about Love, Simon. The film is based on a book by Becky Albertalli, a bisexual woman who was not public about her sexuality when the book was published. Albertalli was subsequently harassed for years, accused of writing a book about being gay without being queer herself and being a straight woman profiting off the queer community. In 2020, she came out publicly, with a quite powerful essay about how she was doing it specifically because of this type of shit. This event hopefully serves as a lesson not to make assumptions of people's sexuality and then write criticism based on those assumptions. But James didn't get the memo. In 2022, he managed to write a video complaining that many stories about gay people are written by straight women and used Love, Simon as the only example.
Because their life experiences did not match the experiences about gayness set by straight women with a kawaii idea to gay people. You have mass consumption media, which takes gay emotions and removes gay experiences,
leaving a husk of empty gestures and unanswered questions, which feels more like a gambling addiction than even implied representation.
James was years late to the party and still accused the openly bi author of being a straight, pandering to the gays. I'd say I wonder what Becky Albertalli thinks about this, but I know what she thinks because she left a comment on his video explaining how shitty it feels getting lumped in with the straights yet again years after coming out, specifically after being treated poorly by people like James. When this happened, this is how he complained to his fan Discord about her. "She isn't happy I included her in the straight female authors section, but I never said she was straight." James is still sore about this mild pushback. He now refuses to acknowledge Love Simon by name, referring to some unspecified incident.
This is compounded through several other high-profile instances of gay media, specifically one which made waves in 2018, but that I will not explicitly mention for reasons. If you know, you know.
Someone asked what he meant by this in the Discord, and he clarified he meant Love Simon, and in true James fashion made up a story where he didn't do anything wrong. He simply mentioned he wasn't its biggest fan, and the author ripped into him on Twitter and stuff. As far as I can tell, Becky never tweeted anything or said anything anywhere about him except his comments section. He's having to twist the story pretty hard to seem like he didn't do a shitty thing here. He called a bi author a straight with kawaii ideas about gay people, didn't think she would see it, and she criticized him for doing it. So this is the non-stolen work, the stuff he writes himself. Open bitterness about women, lies, and grievances over being criticized for this. I'm gonna regret saying it, but he should have stuck to the plagiarism. He complained on Twitter about being criticized for being so harsh on the women who thirsted after Dharma, not realizing he was actually being criticized for a pattern of behavior. These criticisms were valid already, but I would like to supply the context that he stole the words he is saying here and reworded them to be more mad at women specifically. James, what the fuck are you doing? I am trying to maintain focus for once in a video and stick to the plagiarism, but I just can't get away from how this guy fucking sucks. James doesn't get caught stealing as often as he should do because he's cultivated an audience of younger queer people who don't read the kind of stuff he's stealing from and don't recognize open misogyny as long as it's qualified as white women. But on the rare occasion that he is caught, his solution is to private or delete the video and re-upload a slightly changed version and hope no one digs into this extremely suspicious behavior. For example,
oh no.
While I was doing preliminary research late last year, a funny thing happened. Summerton's YouTube community page was wiped. Hundreds of posts from over several years disappeared overnight. At this point, I'd spoken to a few of the writers Summerton had stolen from, and I wondered if maybe one of them had publicly accused him. But after doing some more looking, it turned out no, someone else had independently noticed they'd been plagiarized because there was still more. Seldom Musings, a WordPress blog, had made a post accusing Summerton of plagiarizing a blog post about Attack on Titan from 2013. And then I thought, wait, doesn't Summerton have a video from September 2022 called, like, Attack on Titan and the Death of Media Literacy? Well, he did. Finding an old link, it was suddenly set
I think I've gotten that video
recommended.
recommended.
Over 1.5 million views had been wiped from his channel. Huh. I already had a copy downloaded because, well, Summerton has deleted inconvenient videos before, and I figured something like this would happen again. I've been going through his videos chronologically, so I hadn't got to that one yet, but what's kind of funny is I know I would have noticed this plagiarism myself if I had. That blog post has gone viral multiple times. It's one of the main sources for Western awareness of Attack on Titan's authors' right-wing views. If you're deep on anime fascism discourse, this is a classic post. I've seen it linked and referenced dozens of times over the years. It would make sense to point to this post if you were discussing the political implications of Attack on Titan, or you could even quote it and cite it as a source. Well, wouldn't you know it, Summerton doesn't link the post or quote it anywhere, or acknowledge its existence, he just copies it.
This outrage should come as no surprise knowing the history between Japan and Korea, but that is exactly what most people may not be aware of.
Yeah.
Korea was occupied by Japan from 1910 to 1945.
Only one of many East Asian nations colonized by Japan as part of its growing imperial presence at the time, during which the Japanese army enforced changing Korean names to Japanese style, destroyed and stole Korean cultural artifacts and locations, murdered the Korean empress, forced Korean men into hazardous war efforts, forced Korean women into sexual slavery for Japanese soldiers, and tortured and massacred and experimented upon Koreans en masse. However, history books and classes in Japan have glossed over, if not outright ignored these things.
James doesn't acknowledge the writing he's stealing at all, though he does find the time to make a long opening sequence, James Summerton Presents, directed and edited by James Summerton, written by Nick Hergott and James Summerton. This site was active briefly in 2013, with a post in 2016 clarifying the blog was done. They came back 6 years later to talk about James stealing their work.
The reluctance to paraphrase the same factual information speaks to a lack of imagination. not to mention a lack of research. He should be ashamed of the laziness of copying entire sentences into his script as if he wrote them himself. How can you say a fandom lacks media literacy when you can't even conduct your own research or compose your own analysis?
Summerton saw the author call him a plagiarist and panicked and hid the video, deleted all his community posts so there was nowhere to leave a comment asking what happened this time. He was preparing for his plagiarism to go public and locking everything down. If what Summerton was doing was a defensible artistic choice, he'd be defending it, wouldn't he? He'd say, this is a normal thing to do and I'm going to keep doing it. Instead, he does it secretly and hides the videos when people notice. It's clear he knows what he's doing is wrong and would just rather keep stealing than actually do any work. But while we're talking about the Attack on Titan video, you know he didn't just steal one thing. The video's an hour long. No self-respecting marketing expert would do all that work himself. In this video, and only this video, he quotes several YouTubers, like he has their text on the screen and he reads it out. And he would never normally do that. He would just steal their words and pretend he came up with them. Which means he must be stealing from someone who quoted them. And, yeah.
For a long time, anime fans had no way of knowing what their favorite writers and artists even looked like, let alone what they thought about the world.
3.5 minutes of this video comes from Geeta Jackson at Vice Motherboard. And yeah, when he quotes YouTubers, he's actually quoting Jackson quoting them. I can't believe I fucking called it.
YouTuber Jeff Thu argues, it's because this discussion keeps happening, but it's also not. There's some really good criticism of Attack on Titan, and I think it's important to criticize it.
Now, this isn't just an article quoting someone. Jackson reached out to Jeff for his opinion on this topic. There's nowhere else James could have got this quote, and this time he really fucked it up. At one point, he uses a quote Jackson got from historian and scholar Andrea Horbinski. But remember how he sometimes find and replaces words like gay or trans to queer or LGBT behind it? He accidentally did that to the quote.
As they put it, these fans insist that feminism and LGBTQ people don't exist in Japan, and that any anime depicting either is woke garbage or similar. These fans are extremely angry at attempts to discuss the depictions of female characters in anime as something that could often use improvement, or the inclusion of LGBT characters, period.
This is the most amateur shit I've ever seen. This is sub-high school level plagiarism hiding. You don't find and replace text in the quotes, James! People in Summerton's official Discord server were asking what happened to the video. On January the 1st this year, he said the video was coming back up that day and that it had to come down because of a missing source. That's a very strange way of saying someone noticed me plagiarizing them and criticized me for it and I deleted fucking everything. The new version he uploaded is a minute shorter. He just cut out the sections where he directly read the blog post. The video is even more stilted and strangely written than normal. The point Summerton was trying to make here was so important he was willing to steal it from someone else. Now that point is missing and the surrounding conversation makes no sense. The new version opens saying the original had a citation error. But if that was the problem, why didn't he add a citation instead of deleting the section completely? Well, one reason might be he wants the credit for himself, but the other is if he added their name now, anyone who checked would see the author's new post saying he plagiarized them. Summerton's only way out is to hide it and hope no one notices. He doesn't want to stop stealing, he just wants to not get caught doing it. If he thinks he can get away with keeping something in, he does.
This section has gone on super long, hasn't it?
By Geeta Jackson are still in the new version, completely unchanged. As of recording this video, no one else seems to have noticed this yet, but if anyone does, he'll doubtless delete the video and re-upload a new version with that piece missing too and call it a day. James has done this repeatedly in the past. Several other videos open with text claiming they had to be re-uploaded to avoid a mysterious and unexplained copyright issue. One of them was Codebreakers. At some point it was taken down, altered to hide some but not all of the stuff he stole, and re-uploaded with a new title, Queering Cinema, by any means necessary. The opening titles still call it Codebreakers though. Every time he re-uploads the video, the name is different. It's very confusing. And his well-meaning fans assume that his constantly taking down of videos and re-uploading with pieces missing is a sign of his integrity. They talk about
actually, I can keep doing
every time he re-uploads a video like this. Every time, because he has to do it a lot. The reality is Summerton has had years worth of chances to be the man of integrity his audience wants him to be, and despite this being his full-time job, which he makes thousands and thousands of dollars doing, he would rather keep stealing. By the way, that re-upload of Codebreakers, Queering Cinema, around the time of the Attack on Titan drama, it disappeared again. As far as I can tell, it's still gone nearly a year later. Maybe some authors noticed what he did and said something. Maybe so many pieces had to be taken out there was nothing left. The frequency with which he's had to hide videos to cover this up is staggering. Scrolling up his Discord's video announcement page, you can see right away a shocking amount of stuff that mysteriously went missing without any explanation given. For some reason, Nick wrote a joke on this page about how to tell who wrote what part of each video. It's cute, but I'm going to take it as confirmation that if a section doesn't contain these words, neither of them wrote it. While I was browsing his public fan Discord, I found myself wondering about Nick, his co-writer. Does he know? Nick Hergott, also known as NT Hergott, is a writer, mostly for James's videos, but he does have a self-published young adult novel, so there we go. He's a better writer than James as far as I can tell, in the sense it doesn't look like he steals things. So, does he know what his boss is doing? I checked the fan Discord to see if they talk about the writing process, and I found Nick has a special section dedicated to previewing part of the scripts for upcoming videos, which is a really nice feature. Or it will be, if they wrote them. Nick showcases parts he's written, and as far as I can tell, they're actually his. And they're pretty decent too. And sometimes he shows things James wrote. This is part of the script for a video called How Disney Tore Down the Owl House. And it actually made it into the video. Let me play it to you.
Chapek, though, is in a unique position as far as CEOs of multi-billion-dollar corporations go. Disney is first and foremost in the business of making money, but unlike almost every other giant corporation, it doesn't want to be seen that way by the general public.
Nick literally says, James wrote this. So at the very least, James Summerton wrote this text, right? Right? No!
Chapek, though, is in a unique position as far as CEOs of multi-billion-dollar corporations go. Disney is first and foremost in the business of making money.
Oh, what the fuck? I don't think I've ever done this video
for the San Francisco Gate. I wonder how she feels about having her work reposted to an audience being told it was written by James Summerton. Holy shit! If it's any consolation, Julie, James Summerton's Discord thinks your writing is harsh but true. I love any time y'all talk about Disney. Jesus Christ, it wasn't y'all, it was someone else! It was them all! But the way this post was phrased implies Nick has no idea James did this. He probably saw the text his boss put in the shared script and assumed he wrote it, because if he didn't, that would be really fucking bad. And it's not just these two paragraphs. A solid 4 minutes and 40 seconds are taken from this article. What's weird is James actually acknowledges in the video he has no idea why he went on this tangent.
So, what does all this have to do with the Owl House? Well, I just wanted to point out how big of a tool Bob Chapek is.
He stole a bunch of words for literally no reason. They don't even connect to his point. He just needed to pad his runtime, I guess. Here's another section of a script Nick shared. This is from a draft of the Attack on Titan video. Wait, what's this? Shonan? Okay, shonen is a Japanese word. There's like 5 ways to spell it in English, and this isn't any of them. Here's how we translate Bisatsu Shonen magazine, where Attack on Titan was published. Has he never seen a single issue of Shonen Jump? This video sucked, by the way. He didn't know anything about the genre he was discussing, and now it turns out he can't even spell it. I hope this section was plagiarized. Then again, maybe this time Nick found something he liked in the script that James actually wrote. Nope. It's also stolen! Again! It comes from culturalreview.com, the website/personal blog of Tyler Hummel, who hopes to bring thoughtful and enjoyable commentary on popular culture and entertainment from a culturally conservative and religious perspective. In case you're wondering what that means, he thinks Batman is too woke. Right before the section James copied into a document and told Nick he wrote all by himself, Hummel complains about Marxism and critical race theory, and then randomly whines about people who criticized Game of Thrones' final season before posting Lindsay Ellis's video about it as an example of people he hates. In his quest to seem like he knows what he's talking about, he's willing to borrow the words of a guy who hates him and everything he stands for, including Lindsay Ellis, who he credits with getting him into making video essays, another crime Lindsay should pay for. Wait a minute, did he film himself next to Disney War because Lindsay did? Was he copying that too? Normally I'd think I was overreacting, but he's stolen everything else. I don't know anymore. At least that means he didn't get Shonen wrong. That must have been the nutcase he copied from. No, that's one of the few new words he added to the stolen segment. James Summerton is the dumbest motherfucker. To be completely fair, This piece of the script didn't make it into the final video, so it seems Summerton thought better than to steal from one of the most insane people in the world. But the fact Nick keeps accidentally showing pieces of the script James stole, assuming he did write them, implies even his co-writer has no idea he's doing this. I feel kind of sorry for Nick. His trust has clearly been violated here. He's been made a liar without his knowledge because he trusted his boss and, I assume, friend. That's a messed up situation to be in, seriously. I thought it would be worse if Nick was in on it, but it's the opposite way around, isn't it? It's so violating imagining people work for James and, I assume, make most of their income from working for him, and don't know what they're signing up for. I don't know how I would feel in his position, but not good. This sucks. Worst of all, I think James might be using Nick as a shield. Whenever any mention of the old plagiarism stuff comes up, James immediately brings up how Nick actually writes the videos, and there's no way he would plagiarize.
I have a co-writer who came from academia, where plagiarism in academia gets you kicked out of school. Like, it gets you fired. Nick co-writes my videos. There is no plagiarism.
It's like he's trying to redirect possible negative attention onto his unsuspecting co-writer. Whenever plagiarism comes up, James brings up how great Nick is for writing all the videos in a totally not suspicious way.
Because if it was like somebody accusing me of plagiarism, especially recently, the videos are so heavily written by Nick that they would be accusing Nick of plagiarism, and I will not fucking tolerate that.
Remember, James knows there is plagiarism in his videos because he did it. So when he responds by saying, "No, Nick writes the videos and he would never do that," it's like he's setting him up to take the fall.
Nick is an angel for tolerating me and writing the videos as well, like with his fantastic talent. So that I would just not tolerate.
So either Nick is plagiarizing as well, and that's why the new videos still have a ton of plagiarism, or James is doing it, and now when it comes up, he throws Nick under the bus. But James isn't content pretending to make video essays, no. He wants to wipe on a bigger canvas. In 2022, James Summerton started an Indiegogo for a film studio he wanted to open called Telos Pictures, which intended to produce films focusing on LGBT characters and stories. His video pitching Telos included a series of ideas for miniseries, feature-length movies, and short films. For example, Final Girl, a short about a woman who had survived a typical slasher story. The initial goal of $6,000 was to make 2 of the short films, but with stretch goals for making more. The campaign made enough money to make almost all of them, over 86,000 Canadian dollars, so a bit over 63,000 in USD. Telos has been a runaway financial success for James. As of today, 18 months after raising over $64,000, more than 10 times its initial goal, Telos
what is this video for ads?
Nothing.
Yeah. Okay, so listen. I want to join content. I want to join content, but I need a good layout for it. I don't know how to set it up. You know what I mean? I mean, okay, honestly, I could just put the video larger and then the game smaller, because who the fuck cares about Kingdom Hearts?
He'd be spending $20,000 to $30,000 of the Telos money on it, and as an apology for the lack of updates, he would be adding an update page to the Telos website later that week to keep people informed. 10 months later, this hasn't happened. The Telos website does,
this
however,
video
have
is
a working
good.
donation page where you can give him more
Well,
money
it would
for
be if you
rewards
could
up
watch
to
it,
and including
you
getting
know.
to make requests about the films. What films? Months later, this July, he announced Telos had finally been incorporated as a real company. He called this a long and pricey process. Incorporating in Canada is a few hours of paperwork and costs 200 Canadian dollars. He claimed an update was coming within a week. This was almost 3 months ago. The Telos Twitter account hasn't been updated in well over a year, but he recently opened a Telos Blue Sky page, which has made one post with a poster for a new movie supposedly coming in 2024, which isn't The Listener or any of the previously mentioned films. Every time I look in on Telos, I find no updates on what's happening, but I do find out about a new movie they announced. The website is currently claiming another new film called The Sub, estimated release 2023 is in pre-production. Better get a move on then. Telos keeps announcing new projects with a new poster to go with it consisting of a stock photo with text over it, and then not making any of them. This one's already being used for a real show that exists. He keeps putting text on stock photos and pretending it's a real film in pre-production. It doesn't exactly inspire confidence how fast new films are being dreamed up. One of them even had a teaser consisting entirely of stock footage, only to never be spoken of again. This one isn't even mentioned on the website at all anywhere. Movies take time to make, even short indie films, and for the record so do video essays, but the lack of updates on what is happening, or which film is even being made, is a little disconcerting. Continuing the trend of James's work not really being his, we need to talk about Final Girl, the first project which was cancelled. Final Girl was at one point coming this fall, which at the time was 2022. The people who funded this film were told to expect it by autumn last year. They got pretty far on this one. In late June, James tweeted the script was done. But then, all of a sudden, James moved on to The Listener and the 5 other films he started since then. But unlike many of James's other announced projects, which still have a poster and a tentative release date on the site, Final Girl disappeared completely. What happened here? He claimed he gave up because it was too specific to Nova Scotia and he had to move to find actors. But there could be another reason. The name and synopsis of Final Girl are extraordinarily close to a book which already exists, The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I wonder if Summerton is aware of the similarity. It would be weird if he wasn't, because it was one of his favorite books of 2021. He started the Indiegogo with this short film idea a few months after making this post. You'll be shocked to discover, but something of James's turned out to be stolen and evaporated. The 18-month journey of Telos consists of Summerton being paid $65,000 to make a dozen fake movie posters. So far, James has ripped off bloggers, novelists, authors, anyone who writes text for a living, really. Oh, and Wikipedia, and AMVs, because watching Korra for himself was too much effort, apparently. If you're queer and you wrote something good, no you didn't, but now we need to talk about the time he somehow went even further than that. Let's talk about the time he ripped off another gay YouTuber. Remember Unrequited, the video that ripped off the Celluloid Closet and plagiarized Peter Howell? Before any of the Celluloid Closet stuff had even been discovered, James had already been ripping off someone else with the same video. How? How are there still more? A later section covered examples of queerbaiting in various TV shows, including BBC's Merlin, the recent Teen Wolf TV series, and Sherlock, whatever that is. But people began to notice these sections were suspiciously similar to one another YouTuber had already made. Alexander Avila, whose channel used to be called Are They Gay, has a series of videos exploring the queer implications between characters in various shows. And he's covering Merlin, Teen Wolf, and Sherlock. Part of Summerton's video covering Merlin feels like he watched Avila's video and very slightly rephrased it. But what made it really obvious was the footage he used. They weren't just similar, they were exactly the same. Avila
this guy's like me with my project.
That's crazy. Across different episodes to show the evolving character dynamics. This is Avila using editing and his knowledge of the show to make a point. That same sequence appears exactly in Summerton's video. Avila's video puts text over the footage to explain the character's thoughts and justify his interpretation of the show. This text is still in there in Summerton's version. This is sloppy even by James' standards. He even keeps in a joke Avila made. In case it wasn't obvious, Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On wasn't in the original show. Avila
I get fake mad on Twitter about.
And you're not going to believe this.
No, don't cancel me, no. Dude, I'm this falls under fair use, you know, because I'm like,
Is like a romantic
I'm like giving my comments. You know, this is a really ironic video for me to be yoinking. This video is kind of crazy.
Especially when, you know, you make a living making these videos. He only said things about the show Avila also said.
Where do I
hasn't seen
go?
He just reused Avila's work. The other sections covering Teen Wolf and Sherlock also had extremely similar looking sequences. He'd downloaded and reused several of Avila's videos. When this was discovered, Avila tweeted to Summerton about it, asking for proper credit and in the future to ask people permission before doing something like this. He also left a similar comment on the video, which finally got James' attention. The next day, Summerton set Unrequited to private and contacted Avila on Twitter. I reached out to Avila and asked him what they discussed, and he gave me permission to share these messages with you. Summerton apologized for using his material without asking, claiming he intended to reach out but forgot to, and he had been in a rush to finish the video before the end of Pride Month. And in this rush, he ended up using a lot more of your content than I ever intended. He then offered to credit Avila in the description of his video. Ah yes, that old trick. He also, perplexingly, asked Avila to delete his comment because he put an awful lot of work into his videos and felt discredited by it. Which, frankly, is a wild thing to say to someone you just admitted you stole from. You're not the one putting the work in, buddy. Avila said he would rather Summerton upload a new version that credited him in it directly, or perhaps he could watch Merlin and make his own arguments. He also reminded him that passing someone else's work off as their own is far more discrediting than pointing out someone did that. Summerton never replied. So he admitted he plagiarized Avila's work, but he had an explanation.
Oh my god.
He was too busy. Too busy doing what? You don't do anything! The video was never unprivated. Instead, a few days later, it was re-uploaded with pieces missing, of course. This re-upload was also in 3 parts, saying the video had been edited to remove content owned by other parties. The re-uploads also say which part of 3 they are, except for part 3, which is also called part 2. Summerton had put in about as much work as you'd expect from someone who copies for a living.
See, I'm adding.
The Merlin section was completely removed.
I think my idea didn't work out correctly.
So later parts of the video still refer back to it.
Bro, just kill me, man.
The Teen Wolf and Sherlock sections were kept the same, so all the video sequences he got from Avila for those parts were still in there. He didn't accidentally use any obvious parts where
I forgot to use magic.
Came up, so I guess he decided it was fine to keep it in. The way James treated Alexander, stealing several of his videos, then when caught offering to hide a credit in the description like that would change what he'd done, and then re-uploading the video with half the stuff he stole still in it, is a clear indicator how little he thinks of his fellow queer creators. He does not care about doing right by other people in his community. He cares about making money, by any means necessary. What makes this even clearer is how publicly he does not admit fault or even pretend he learned anything. To this day, he lies about what happened. When the plagiarism allegations came up on that livestream, he made up a completely new story that contradicts the apology he gave to Alexander. He claims he downloaded a highlight reel of Merlin clips from somewhere else, and that highlight reel stole from Avila's video, so technically he didn't steal from him and it was all just a misunderstanding.
In the original History of Queer Coding video, I used a highlight reel.
No, it's good. It's a good video.
That another YouTuber had.
No, it's not anger bait. No,
and I thought it was just a good video. Apparently, it actually came from another video. From the channel Are They Gay?
I'm not just saying that because I've been watching for, oh my god, 3 hours?
And there was one where I took a highlight reel in 2020 from a highlight video that happened to be from a video from a YouTube channel.
The only problem with this story is we have receipts.
And I took a highlight
reel.
Oh,
we have receipts, bro. See, Dylan, you can't. They got receipts, bro.
And it was pointed out to me that that didn't come from a highlight reel. That came from an actual video, and it had been stolen from that video for the highlight reel that I took it from.
Sure.
Nick co-writes my videos. There is no plagiarism. There was, as I said, and I will say one more time, a highlight reel from the show Merlin that I took from a larger highlight reel video that was apparently sourced from a video from the channel Are They Gay?
James admitted directly to Avila that he took from his work on purpose, although he intended to steal less. How considerate of him. James is lying directly to his audience to protect his reputation. He can't even own up to his behavior. He just keeps lying, and he didn't even stop stealing. A little while after the stream where the allegations came up, he made a post on Patreon to try to explain the allegations for people still asking about them. You have to be a patron to see it, so avert your eyes if you're not giving James money. In addition to repeating the lie, he got permission from Sean Griffin to adapt Tinkerbells and Evil Queens before making the video. He again states he got the clips from a highlight reel which got them from Are They Gay? Left to his own devices, James will just make up what happened. And since his paying customers haven't seen the evidence of him admitting he did it, they have no option but to assume it's true. James did this on purpose with multiple videos and is lying to his backers so they continue to support him financially. James, you've been to business school. You know there's a word for that. And even if I hadn't reached out to Avila and got that woefully hilarious confession...
Why does this sometimes do damage? Sometimes it doesn't? I don't know.
There's one last missing piece of the puzzle.
He's not taking damage.
Ignoring for a second he admitted to Avila he took from more than one video. Ever since, he's always pretended it was just Merlin. If I could somehow prove he also used Avila's other videos for those sections, that would show the extent of the copying.
Oh my god.
How much he's lying to cover it up. But like I said, the Teen Wolf and Sherlock sections aren't as obvious. He doesn't steal
I wonder if anyone actually watched this video without playing Brain Rocket. Bro, there's no way. Like, someone actually just sitting down and watching this, I would... I mean, I don't know. I also have, like, mega brain rot, so I don't know. maybe normal people do.
Contrasting the clips to show they're all the same, wasting even more of my precious life watching Sherlock than I already have. But then,
do I want to go here? I don't.
Tweets from when he was making this, and I saw that he posted a picture of him editing this video.
I don't know any other people. So
Forgive me, but the opportunity to do something like this comes once in a lifetime.
I don't know who those people are.
Jimmy, if you're somehow still watching,
whoa, I freaking love the
just how bad a liar
Danganronpa.
Just how obviously awful and deceitful you look to anyone who's paying attention.
Oh my god.
Before you'd even uploaded
he didn't do the
video,
take that.
You posted a picture of the
fake,
Sherlock section of your
fake
timeline,
reference.
and the source footage is clearly labeled.
Is that Project Train? Dude, I should play that game. Dude, I thought today I was gonna play Hi-Fi Rush, and it's like I did it.
Let's get a big picture look at how much stealing
it's like
James
I
has done.
did it.
As of making
hey yo, you
motion
can't show
graphic,
that.
There are 56 video essays on his YouTube channel dated after October 2018. A minimum of 22.
Well, it's not that I'm busy, it's that I want to
material.
fucking kill
He
myself.
also has 2 essays exclusively to his
Everything's
video
too much
page.
work.
According to him, YouTube flagged them not
You
safe
wouldn't
for
get it.
work. These have a ton of plagiarism in them too. Several
It's
videos
like
were taken down and then re-uploaded with parts removed, like
Kingdom
Attack on
Hearts
Titan
is
and
fine,
a few others.
because I
don't know
don't
how I
have
should
to
account
think.
for re-uploads on this list, but we should at least include videos which were deleted and never came back, like Code Breakers. And hey, welcome back, Unrequited. He took that re-upload down too at some point.
There's something else I wanted to
And
play.
let me be clear,
Forget
this
what
is
it was,
just the
though.
plagiarism we know of. We could have easily missed the stuff in the other videos, or there could be more deleted ones we don't even know about. That's a minimum of 26 videos that steal stuff. Like James said, there's not 3 or 4 examples, there's hours of
I'll play
examples.
like Pokemon.
An entire channel's worth of
I'm gonna become
examples.
Pokemon
This isn't a
streamer.
one-off mistake,
I'm
or
gonna
a
be like,
misunderstanding,
whoa,
or a citation error. This is a
can you
pattern
beat
with no sign
Pokemon
of stopping.
Ruby
There's
with
no
only
fixing
grass
this,
Pokemon?
And there's no undoing
And
the
like the
damage
answer
he's
is
done
yes,
directly
it's
and
all literally
indirectly by
always
using
yes.
so many people's work without credit for money.
But that, how would people know without clicking the video, you know? He's got a chair.
A lot of people have been burned by James, not just in terms of having their writing or videos stolen.
What else did I want to play?
One even giving him money
I played Baldur's
to find
Gate.
out he was stealing
I'll play that
from
one
them.
game you
But on a basic
told me
level,
about.
liking
I
someone's
downloaded it
work
and I never
and
played. What the
funding
fuck was
them,
it called?
only to realize you're funding plagiarism
Paranormicite?
is
Yeah.
humiliating. James
I
has
saw it
become one of the
earlier. I was
biggest
like, oh
LGBT
yeah.
YouTubers in the room, essentially absorbing all the support and attention that would have otherwise gone to people who actually do work. Other gay video essayists have to come up with their own opinions and actually write them. They can't compete on volume with a guy who's willing to rip off dozens and dozens of other people. Many of the people he's copied were paid very little, and in some cases, not at all.
You have the
for their
content?
original
What are you gonna
material when
play?
They wrote it. They were hoping their writing would be recognized and result in future work and more of a
What
career.
could it be?
And in a way, their
What
good
could it
work
be?
was
Is it
recognized,
perhaps
but only by James? How much recognition
a
do you think
game
they got when James
that
read
rhymes
their words
with
without crediting them? And on the other hand, how much money has James made from
the
them? How much money has he made in
Comnium
fundraising
files?
to start a film studio on the back of this career he got from them, while
Of course,
making no
fairly.
films? Gay writers are already poorly recognized for their work and contributions. It's a common problem. James should know about this. In Code Breakers.
What do you
or
mean
Queer
you have to
Cinema
search
or
for it? That
whatever
game's
it'll be
like
called next time,
1 gigabyte. Wait, no, you got your TikTok shit. I saw you post it.
History and being forgotten.
You can't fool me.
This part was stolen too.
So as we start out on our lifelong personal journeys, how do we discover our queer identity if we don't know?
This guy probably doesn't even have Lego Fortnite installed.
Steven Space's column is extremely moving to read.
Do I? What the fuck? I'm floating.
And no one watching James's video had the chance to learn his name. James made a lot of money repeatedly re-uploading a video.
Well, Lego Fortnite isn't out yet, so I just tricked you. Get shit on it.
And he did it by erasing queer people. I guess when he renamed it,
how come this video turned into like
any means necessary, he meant it. Every re-upload, the credits get longer. The list of people he's conned grows.
What gay
The works he's stealing from aren't doing quite so well. This column was written in 2019 for Midlands Zone magazine, the UK's biggest regional gay publication. Due to the impact of the pandemic, Midlands Zone ceased production in 2020. This year, their official site went down, along with its archive of articles like this one. Googling the words James stole now gets you no results. I only found this plagiarism because I noticed it before the website fell off the internet. Good writing
for me to play Hi-Fi Rush
is hard to find and easy to lose. And in obscurity, it becomes even easier to pretend it was yours. None of the money he makes will go to the people who wrote the great lines his viewers enjoyed. They get to rot in the very obscurity he pretends to criticize, while James takes all the oxygen for himself to promote only himself and position himself as a crusader for real representation,
I don't really need Magnet anymore.
While giving a speech he stole about how gay people keep going missing from the story. I wonder how that happened.
It provokes a deep and meaningful question, I think. What is the real, tangible impact of gay erasure?
There is something a little bit soul-crushing about watching a man be paid thousands and thousands of dollars to literally plagiarize the phrase, "What is the real,
Hey, so did you know that I have to hand everything in on Friday, and I still don't have the reviewed version of what I have to hand in? Isn't that crazy? And I have to go print it out, and I have to go print out the poster, and like that takes a long time.
This video.
And I have to like.
I was just trying to double check.
How do you say this in
English?
I need to like.
Accusations, and I ended up finding a whole bunch more, and I have functionally made a drama video about.
Does that make sense?
And worse, if this video goes up and is monetized and
I don't know how to say it.
Views, I have been paid, financially rewarded for making this. I don't find that acceptable. Especially not when the story is really about people who were never compensated for their work being stolen. So to make sure I have no financial incentive to make a video like this again, I'm going to be dividing any of the ad revenue this video makes among the creators James stole from. I'll be conducting a thorough examination of every video James has posted, including the many he has deleted I can find archives of, and contact everyone I can. At least the stuff he got from that weird right-wing guy isn't in the video, so he technically wasn't stolen from and doesn't need to be paid. You dodged a bullet for me there, James. It also occurs to me now that I will have to make a substantial donation to Wikipedia. Something that really got to me researching this video was watching James pitch himself as the queer creator.
Nah, there's no way, bro.
Making YouTube
probably makes like a he was talking about it earlier.
Movie studio your money, and not the other talented people.
I think he brings it up.
Of his support.
That
he extremely rarely recommends or speaks positively of any
those
other
videos make like $1 bajillion.
Members of his community are competitors.
He did steal from like $1 billion people.
And no one else sees things his way, even though he stole those observations.
Still
so
like
obviously
a lot of money,
people
right?
do. The trickle-down effect of this behavior is a little upsetting. From the look of his comment sections, his devout fans believe
that's also
him when he says there's no one else doing what he does.
You know, if it's
a
like
manipulative strategy.
like I'm actually gonna message everyone, or it's like I'm gonna message like the people I
sucks to see happen.
referenced in the video.
Some of my favorite queer creators in case James fans who made
it this far Genshin is up for player mode again. This shit I saw. Or I have already seen posts in subreddit being like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if ... and then they post like the player awards category.
Queens of the Disney canon. He writes his own books because he actually does his own work. His video about Disney villains is a favorite of mine and a palate cleanser after watching someone reconstitute other people's observations into smug
What makes Disney villains so gay? What the...
energetic and funny when handling sensitive topics is incredibly refreshing. everything, and instantly makes the conversation at hand so much more useful. Their video about the politics of coming out, the evolution of the concept, and whether maybe we fixate a little too much on what it's come to mean in modern culture is great. Give it a shot. Lady Emily's videos are all made for me, but the one about Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy explores the history of two of DC canon's most important characters, and why they make such an engaging couple in stories. I recommend it, especially if you've not seen any of the good stuff coming out of DC lately, which does exist, like Teen Titans Go, or the Snyder Cut. Shanspia covers a broad range of issues from AI to Lolita, but their video about true crime is a great tour of our species' long-term morbid fascination with gruesome stories. Shanspia asks, why are we fascinated with true crime, with I was like, curiosity rather than judgment?
Oh yeah, I still want to further a
any white women to get mad at.
And I remembered I leveled
Gene, a ton of videos about media and gender.
And I was like, why?
Kat only found her by searching queer horror on YouTube and scrolling down for several minutes to see what was buried under the huge pile of
no idea what I wanted to do.
X and Y.
Now I want to level like 4 different characters.
I recommend her recent one about
so I guess I
horror,
should
which
just
explored gender's role in it in a way that made me say out loud, "Oh right, yeah." It's good. Give it a shot. I just found out about Verity Ritchie and their channel.
No, am I stupid?
Good one, but their videos with the help of co-writer Ada are really entertaining. I should recommend the video about the lesbian gaze just to offset all the baggage I had to experience making this. But the one about Doctor Who and women is great and also deals with gayness, so it counts. And after all this, I'd be amiss not to recommend Alexander Avila, whose latest videos have been real bangers. The type of content he makes has evolved in the last year or so, from funny queer-oriented media analysis to funny queer-oriented life analysis. TikTok Gave Me Autism is really good, and I'd plagiarize it if I could get away with it at this point. There's a ton more queer creators out there covering the topics James
that title's so good.
To do it with their own words, even without his massive budget. Linked in the description is a playlist with these and more video essays on queer media, or history, or politics, or philosophy, or queer anything really, from creators you should consider giving a look if you haven't. It's been reassuring putting this part of the video together and getting to fully realize there's plenty of us out there, and most of them are very cool. James was the exception to a group of entertaining, thoughtful, and kind human beings. I'm proud of us. Yeah, I guess that's the word, isn't it? Anyway, let's try to pull a rabbit out of this bloody mess of a hat. I'm gonna put my wall back up and try to come to a wider conclusion about plagiarism real quick. One sec.
Here.
Rachel, you haven't even held the camera. Can you help me with this at least? Light. That's right, she's real. You don't know me. Me to you. It's on. Thanks for that. We've talked a lot today about what plagiarism is, but we should also talk a little bit about what it isn't. It's completely fine to be inspired by someone or build on ideas you got from somewhere else, especially if you're open about it. Famous big boy YouTuber Ludwig has a thing he calls the Yoinking twist, where he gets ideas from existing videos and openly broadcasts he's doing his own spin on it. In his video about that one guy copying the Capsule Hotel video, he happily says where he got the stuff he drew on for his own work.
This is me trying silly chess ideas, and look at all the tweets beside me with your ideas suck. Genius thumbnail. I got it from Fundy. I got it from Fundy. I made your dumb ideas in Minecraft, and then he has a bunch of tweets next to him.
It's hard for anyone to feel ripped off when he's open about where he got the ideas. I'm old enough now that when I was yay high, I was here for the first time this conversation happened on YouTube. It's easy to get rose-tinted about the early days, the 240p wiki Wild Wild West before anyone had sponsorships or even qualified for ad revenue. There was no money in it, so people just made what they liked making. Things were better.
I think I need to go into here to reset the world,
but there was social capital, and that spends almost as good. The AVGN, one of the subjects of this video, had dozens of knockoffs vying for his spot. The Irate Gamer, the Game Dude, the Sega Kid, Urinating Tree, Armake21, Acoustic
Urinating Tree,
the Pissed Off Angry Gamer Man,
Nintendo Shit Cube.
Even before there was any money in it, we were drowning in people competing to be the guy calling NES Batman a shitload of fuck. But even back then, you could draw a line between people who cynically wanna be the guy and people who wanted to be themselves, but
want to be the guy reference
by ideas
in 2023. What
like
the fuck?
Open about drawing
That's
inspiration
crazy.
from Armake
That's not that
21,
crazy.
one of the better angry reviewers. And how many people claim inspiration from Spoonie One today? Too many. Stop Skeletons from Fighting, who, unlike everyone I just mentioned, is still around today because he developed his own new ideas, started out by taking inspiration from all these people and then deliberately doing the opposite with the happy video game nerd, being positive about games he liked. Now that's a Yoinking twist. YouTube is a beautiful cesspool of inspiration, remixing, riffing, parody. Drawing on existing ideas is a great way of making something new and unique. It's only wrong when you add nothing and try to pretend it was yours in the first place. And you don't have to cite your sources like a rocket scientist either. Sonic lore YouTuber Cybershell frequently uses information and images he got from websites like the Cutting Room Floor and just explains where he's getting it from and often asks permission to use it.
Hey, I think I'm gonna play that game again.
In a paste bin and not mention it anywhere else.
Tomorrow.
But his videos are great because he shows you where you could
Actually, I
learn
probably
more,
have to war
and maybe
tomorrow.
even makes fun of you for not reading the website yourself in the first place, while explaining the topic in his own way. This is why Kat is forcing me to tell you his Chow video is objectively the best thing on YouTube. Thanks a lot, Kat. Fittingly, when Cybershell inspires someone, they're equally open about it. When one of his videos led Alan Pan to invent a device to steal soda from Universal Studios, he tells you right at the start he found out about the original from Cybershell's video. This is the community spirit I love to see on this website. It's kind of beautiful watching a wider story unfold. One generation of Baja Blast thieves passing on their designs to the next. If you're honest about it, there's not even anything wrong with adapting a book or telling people what you found on Wikipedia. Different people like getting information in different ways. Wikipedia lets people record and upload readings of pages so you can learn about Bhutanese passports through audio, and they do it for a reason.
Bhutanese passport.
Some people might even prefer a video version. It would practically be an accessibility feature. Making video adaptations of interesting books or mental floss articles is an idea with potential. It's a way of spreading writing and ideas to a new audience, and all you have to do is be honest about it. That also forces you to be accountable. You'd have to ask permission and get the approval of the people who wrote what you're adapting, which clears up any potential criticisms or infringement on the existing work.
Okay, that's good.
Speaking of adaptation,
That means that word's not important.
This is another way of
I mean, I still have to do. No, actually, I have promise.
You might be wondering why I am subtitled in Portuguese.
So I just need.
The guy James quoted someone quoted.
I
covered
hate
how a
this
Brazilian
guy.
YouTuber had been stealing dozens of videos from him and other English-speaking creators, but in Portuguese, so us cadelas would never notice. This sucks, but it also points to one of the core barriers to accessibility for creators. Most videos are trapped in their mother tongue, making them hard to watch in other languages and therefore easier to steal. This is why some clever creators very smartly let their producer trick him into paying people to do proper captions for the vaccines video in Portuguese, Spanish, and French so more people could engage with the facts of the story. And
So there's
pathologically
two magic
Russian
slides.
because I know who watches that video. Translation is a big part of video discovery in more ways
Snagged
than
it?
one. For
Okay.
Spoonie fans, a lot of his old videos used to be missing as non-YouTube video hosts died and their content didn't make the jump. Many of his videos weren't viewable on YouTube were it not for the Spoonie Russ. A Russian fan of Spoonie re-uploaded his videos with Russian subtitles, and some of these were the only versions of those videos that existed on the net, at least for a while. Subtitling his videos didn't just make him accessible to a new language, but to the original language too. That's pretty cool. But you can go deeper than sub. You can dub.
Времени хуже. Это вашу мать.
Counter-Strike tuber 3Clicks Philip dubbed two of a Russian creator's videos about mods they made into English, with permission of course. It's very cool that a video about game development got to cross the language barrier for us sukas to enjoy. There might actually be a market in adapting videos like this. I'm sure some of my videos would do very well if someone translated them into English. I think a lot of people are inclined to protect creators they like on the grounds that plagiarism is a very academic-sounding problem, like something that happens in research papers or journalism, not something that you can do in a silly video made for entertainment purposes. Why are we holding YouTubers to standards? That would be like expecting accurate history from someone whose name has historian in it. Because YouTubers often project a sense of being scrappy, do-it-yourself amateurs, it feels almost wrong to expect them to be professional. But a lot of them are professionals, regardless how authentic their persona might be. YouTubers are now among the most recognizable faces on the planet and have become immensely wealthy doing this. Some are so influential, we literally call them influencers. Maybe it's a good idea to have some standards for not stealing. Maybe. In current discourse, YouTubers simultaneously present as the forefront of a new medium, creative voices that need to be taken seriously as part of the next generation of media. And also NOOO Small Beans little babies who shouldn't be taken seriously when they rip someone off and make tens of thousands of dollars doing it. But on the opposite end, YouTubers who act like serious documentarians gain a shroud of professionalism which then masks the deeply unprofessional things they do. We just saw that with James. I think he's partially got away with what he's doing for so long because he acts so professional about it. So people assume there's no way he could just be stealing shit, so they don't check. And on top of that, a lot of James's videos contain obvious mistakes and made-up facts, which we haven't even had the time to get into in this video. But because they're often presented next to well-researched stuff he stole, no one questions it. I've seen James repeat a lie in his videos, and then other people claim it's true and link his video as the proof. He has helped to solidify misinformation by seeming like he's doing his diligence. To quote the great philosopher Daniil Dankovsky, truth does not do as much good in the world as the appearance of truth does evil. Just kidding, he actually stole that from Francois de la Rochefoucauld. Cite your sources, bachelor! This becomes extremely glaring once you've seen how the other side lives. At the last VidCon I went to, like 4 years ago, I was taking an Uber and a bunch of people came in it with me because we were all going to the same place. A bunch of big YouTubers who I don't know super well, including really massive one, like way more important than me, you know? And we were all just making small talk, and I made a joke that was actually quite funny about the topic we were talking about. And this big YouTuber, she laughed and took out her phone and tweeted it. She heard my joke and just casually went, "Oh, I'll have that." And it became her joke. And she just took it. People really liked the joke too, which felt kind of good, but not really. And what are you gonna do, complain? And start a massive public fight with someone extremely famous and get smashed into dust by thousands of fans? No thanks. And that was my Uber too. I paid money to have one of my jokes stolen by a multi-millionaire. When people hit a certain level of celebrity, they start to think the world actually revolves around them, and they can just take something if they want and say it's theirs.
Wow, this sucks.
I don't have a
okay, I need to
analysis
go
here. Some people are just
here.
fucking weird. I'm not smart enough to know what we're supposed to do about plagiarism. I think trying to fix it in any systemic way could risk making it worse. Let's imagine YouTube introduced some kind of plagiarism claim system.
I can't go here.
At YouTube to be able to decide whether something is plagiarism or not. And I don't like the idea of YouTube having any more power than they already have. If there was a system for handling plagiarism, the Illuminatis of the world wouldn't stop. They'd find ways around it. We've seen in this very video how easy it is to get away with copyright infringement. Just blur the logos and slap a filter over it. These systems are so untrustworthy, when Internet Historian correctly got copyright claimed for stealing an entire article, people automatically assumed it was some kind of mistake, because YouTube is quite fairly viewed as bad at handling this. Just as likely to shut down perfectly fair use work as it is actual infringement of copyright. A system like this would also allow bad actors to falsely accuse people, which would create a lot of problems for their targets. People falsely copyright claim videos they don't like all the time already. It's happened to me. I almost had to give a Nazi my home address so that a video would go back up. I'm half expecting some of the people this video was about to try it with this one. Maybe let's not give YouTube any more easily exploitable features. I want my joke back, but I can live without it if it means not giving the bad guys another talk. Simply being able to talk about plagiarism and bring attention to it and let people decide if something is and who they want to support going forward, that's good enough for now. But don't take my word for it on this. I'm certainly not. Someone smarter than me might come up with a better idea, so let's keep our eyes peeled for that.
Oh my God.
As technology progresses, the methods of plagiarism are getting stranger and more complex. The hot new tool in the stealing tools box is generative AI, like ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, or Midjourney, which can produce new art or words on command using a process known as stealing. Sorry, that's an oversimplification. The process is called, complicated stealing. Theoretically, generative AI works by training on a large dataset of existing material to figure out how to make new things. Before we even ask whether stuff generated by this counts as original, we have to ask, how did they get all that material? Well, by taking a lot of stuff without its creator's consent. ChatGPT has intricate knowledge of copyrighted works it shouldn't legally have access to, and when you ask it to write something original, it's just smushing all the stolen data together and using pattern recognition to try to guess the next word. It can't actually intuit things based on context. Here's what ChatGPT thinks I'd say about ChatGPT. It's like having your own personal tutor, therapist, and fact-checker rolled into one. So whether you're here for the knowledge, the banter, or just to see how deep the rabbit hole goes, buckle up. It knows I say buckle up. I'll give you that. None of the people whose stuff was stolen to create this were asked permission or compensated. I certainly wasn't, but you bet they're charging you a monthly subscription for the privilege of using Theft Machine 4.0. When you look into what a large language model actually does, it boils down to a slightly more advanced version of mashing the predictive text button on your phone, which makes it especially dangerous when it comes to writing reliable information. AI frequently hallucinates imaginary people, books, and historical events because it doesn't actually know any facts, just what facts look like. It's like asking James who came up with Disney Gay Days. You can't trust it. They had to put "Don't trust me" at the bottom so they don't get in trouble for inventing a machine that makes up lies. But because it has copied a lot of text and can guess a lot of new ways of saying it, the power this tool brings specifically to thieves is tremendous. ChatGPT's one truly impressive feature is how well it enables plagiarism. You could just paste a bunch of stolen stuff you got from Wikipedia or someone else's video in there and tell it to rewrite it so it sounds different. I wouldn't be surprised if James's videos suddenly stop having easily detectable plagiarism in them right around the time computers become able to launder this type of theft. Now it's a machine accidentally changing the quotes. Some creators have found people copying their work using this exact method, feeding their videos transcripts into a GPT, asking for a different sounding version and using it as the basis.
Bro, I thought this video ended like 30 minutes
to
ago.
Consider a world where machines crank out videos copying your work and replace you. The plagiarism is extremely obvious. It's just someone's script reworded badly. The thumbnails are just a thesaurus version of the originals that doesn't even make sense, and the videos themselves actively demonstrate they're using footage from the original video. It's sloppy. The videos are unwatchably bad, so no one watched them. When someone finally did, they were caught immediately. Not to downplay the chance for these to be successful, or the possibility of a more sophisticated version in the future, but it's heartening to recognize that these aren't even really AI. A person had to make these videos. It's still just people doing the stealing here. Pointing out AI was involved is almost a misdirection. A human being stole a video and made his own. All the AI did was speed up the process of making a shitty, obviously stolen video by doing the bad rewriting for them. People have been ripping each other off long before AI happened, and for now, it's still people. So, why do people plagiarize? We've talked a lot
Wait,
of
what the hell is this?
In this video, wanting money or prestige or clout or to get one over on your enemies by jacking their stuff, but these are small things. There's other ways of getting those. The reason humans copy like this, I think, goes a bit deeper. We don't exactly live in a world built for humans, do we? There's no guidebook for happiness or success or a sense of place in the world, and the people claiming to have one for you are really just trying to sell you something. We spend most of our little lives struggling to make these feelings fade away, or find something to placate them. It's either ennui
or being
ennuied. I know it's a little pretentious, but we're all searching for a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives, and those things are hard to come by. There's a little bit of nothing in all of us, and we'd like to fill it with something. Opening your web browser and seeing someone who seems to have it figured out, making you feel better and entertaining you, and seeming to attract an audience on this roulette wheel of a planet, that's powerful. There's someone who seems to understand what they're supposed to be doing, and it's working. That's all anyone really wants. Sure, in retrospect, a bunch of people wanting to be exactly like the AVGN sounds silly, but he knew who he was. He was the angriest gamer you've ever heard. We can laugh, in fact, you're supposed to, but that's a human being with purpose. There's someone who's not anxious about their place in the world anymore. It's very difficult not to want that completeness for yourself.
Oh,
not to
I
just be like someone,
forgot.
but to be them, to attain that sense of knowing. In real life, James Rolfe is a human being with all sorts of
Okay, we're
problems
flipping
and
it.
fears, but that doesn't stop people from wanting to be like the person he seems.
Wait, can I just
someone
end?
who knows their place in the world. I know this is getting a bit pretentious and heavy for a video about plagiarism, but I do worry there are people out there who will never get the chance to become who they are because they're too busy trying to be like someone else who, at best, has it figured out for themselves just a little bit. I feel like I know who I am and how to live my life, and that makes me feel happy and somewhat complete. And I don't think I'd have ever found myself if I was trying to chase someone else's sense of completeness. Basically, no one knows how to live your life, and you might not either, but the only person who's going to figure it out is you. And you won't find that by trying to be the next that person. You can only be the first of whoever it is that you are. Other people help in small ways, though. They give you pointers to who you could be. And I think what makes me happiest in the world is feeling like I might have helped some people with it. People take inspiration from my work sometimes, and that is very cool. It's the ultimate flattery, and let's be honest, the closest I'll ever come to having children. If you find any happiness or success making something creatively, and you think I helped, thank you. Feeling like I can do that for someone makes me happy in a way I can't describe. And if you find a lot of success doing it, give me all of your money.
Wow. I did it. I watched the video. Holy. Wait, there's more? Oh no. I mean, there's like a little clip, I guess.
You know the review in Film Comment of 28 Days Later that was ripped off in the Cinemassacre section? I knocked it over. The Film Comment website claims that that was printed in the physical magazine. Film Comment has an actual magazine edition. So obviously I thought, well, if I could get a copy of that, that would be great for some footage. I should get some shots of it for the video. So I painstakingly tracked down a copy of a 20-year-old magazine, which I just knocked on the floor. 1 second. Here we are. And I have footage of me opening this to get the shot of the review, and it's not in it. I thought, oh, maybe they messed up which issue of the magazine it was in on the website. But then before I did any more searching for ancient magazines, I emailed Professor Syed and just asked if it was ever printed, and she said no, it wasn't. So I wasted a lot of time trying to get a shot that I ended up not getting. And that's why videos like this take this long. Imagine something like that happening once a week. This is why people steal things. Doing your own research is life-ruining. Tune in next time when I make a donut. That's not a joke. That happens in the next video. Bye.
Okay, cool. Damn. Is it time for this video? It's never time for this video. What the fuck? I'll go through this later. Oh, let me just take this off, actually. Wait, why am I even opening this? I'm searching. I literally just need the one thing. Could have been like an all blue checks run, actually. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away. It's crazy. No. You know what? I don't want to play anymore. GG's.